How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the AlphaWarrior Show. This is your host, Alpha. I hope you guys enjoy this special new thing I'm going to be doing. If you guys like it, I'll be doing this probably once a week. Not sure what day that I'll be doing it, but every now and then, you guys know that I talk about these X spaces, these Twitter, old Twitter virtual town halls. And I think they're very informative. And I'm going to be bringing our community and trying to cross pollinate, get some of you guys over there, get some of them over here. This particular X space is from Wednesday night. Yes, because today is Friday. I'm trying to get my day. It's the 21st today. My day's blend. But anyways, it's a long X space. I think we did a pretty good job at keeping it professional. It's a little over 3 hours. And we're gonna be talking UFOs and disclosures with Game Tech. Josh came in and he was in there for a significant portion of time. And then we had some other people, and this is the one thing that I think is going to be really good. We had some people that have some vast knowledge on this topic, some interesting theories and points of view, and you guys are going to kind of get to experience that. So, if this thing is a hit, I'll get the visualizations here. Maybe do some B rolls and do some stuff with some overlays. But tonight's gonna be it'll be a static image to go with it. So I appreciate you guys' feedback. Let me know. They're not always gonna be this long. I'm probably gonna keep them down to about 90 minutes. So with that, hopefully you guys can hear me. And since you guys are watching here on Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube, if I can get some 5x5s, just to make sure everything's up and working. And while we're doing that, I'm going to run us an ad so I can pay some bills and keep this content free for y'all and keep food on my table. So, of course, they can cancel your accounts, freeze your cards, decide what you're allowed to buy, say, or support. Big banks and financial institutions have total control, and they use it. That's why financial independence matters now more than ever. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a wallet built for freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money. Not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. Buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin in one secure place. No permission, no middleman, no cancel button. And when you want to support creators you actually believe in, you can use the Rumble Wallet app to directly tip content creators securely, instantly, and without interferences. This isn't a credit line that they can shut off. It's your wallet permanently. Yours to protect your future, yours to protect your family. When the system fails, when the institutions turn on their own people, like they did to us, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Rumble Wallet isn't about politics, it's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download Rumble Wallet now and step away from the big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, true financial freedom. And if you're watching on Rumble, that little tip jar is right around here if y'all want to tap that thing and send a little love this way. So with that, folks, I hope you enjoy it. I'll be watching the chat. Any Rumble rants that come through, and anybody that shows up late, let them know that this is recorded from Wednesday night, but I will be reading the Rumble rants at the end of the show tonight. So with that, you guys, I hope you enjoy. I'm hungry and I'm tired, but here we go. And then I'll ask you the first question that I want to ask regarding this discussion, and then we will roll from there. So first, folks,
will you check your DM real quick before you start, because there's a couple things that I wanted you to touch on.
All right.
Yeah, check your DM.
I will do that right now. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna open up the DM with you. A couple things, bro. You sent me a book.
I did. I wrote it beautifully though for you.
It is. I do like that. All right. Let me fill the air, and then after I fill the air real quick, I'll take a glance at that. And I like what you're doing there. I like what you're doing. So folks, do us a solid. One, Game Tech is going to be the star guest tonight. Brilliant man. Me and Josh, you hear us mention Game Tech and Blue Canaries or Canaries Blue routinely on the different shows we do regarding stuff like Metabiota. These are the people, in my opinion, that brought it to the surface, and I think it's something that's going to resurface again. But the man is brilliant, and he's also honest. Whether it's a public discussion or a private discussion, sometimes me and Game Tech have had some heated differences when it comes to things, and I think that's good. I like knowing when people are going to tell me, sorry, I think you're full of shit. And I like when I get to tell people, sorry, I think you're full of shit. because then we walk away knowing that we're being honest with each other, and discussions need to be honest if you want them to progress and grow. The other thing I want to say is, like I said, going to be doing spaces again. There's some great people doing it already, and I just want to fill the gap in some areas that I don't think are being addressed yet. So just kind of look for that. It will be a consistent schedule on the days that I pick. I just want to work it around some of these great people that are doing spaces already. I don't want to overstep. They're big spaces anyways, right? But tonight I did do a very fun show surrounding, Nixon, and it's the rest of the story. And like I said, that aired on YouTube, that aired on Rumble, it aired here on X, and I did that with Colonel Towner Watkins. And it was a great show. It's every Wednesday night. So if you are unfamiliar with Operation Gladadio, then like I said, tune in, follow me, hit that little bell, and every Wednesday night you will see it. The new time for that's going to start is 9 p.m. Eastern. And that's because I kind of anticipate doing these spaces on Wednesday nights following Operation Gladadio. So with that, we will get into this conversation. Jenny, if you want to do me a favor and just buy me about 60 seconds while I read something real quick to prepare myself.
Yeah, go for it. You guys, in the meantime, if you guys don't mind, go down the purple pill, like and share this, get some more people in here, so Alpha can grace everybody with his presence on these X spaces. I don't think I've ever been in a space that he's hosted, but anyway, welcome, guys. I'm anxious to hear what he's got going on today. This dude, Alpha, I swear he does like 100 shows a day. Like, what? Where do you find the time, dude? Where? In the midst of all that, blowing up your bicep to match
He's
your
gonna
other one.
start. He's gonna start his own media network that runs 24/7 like CNN.
I
Oh, that's insanity.
I listen. I'm investing all the time that I'm doing right now because somehow, some way, in the next 4.5 years, I'm going to completely retire, and enjoy a life. I've been in a life of service since I was 21 years old, and I'm pretty exhausted. But I want to make sure that I'm confident that when I exit stage left, that there are people that are going to be able to continue my show, whether it's I hand it off to somebody or several people. I want to make sure that I don't just leave and there's not someone there that can carry the torch. But I've been very clear that when I turn 50 years old, I want to rest. And ultimately, it's God's plan, but we'll see. So, with that, you guys, get your popcorn, get your soda, your coffee, or maybe you got a little something with some alcohol in it. That works too. But here's where we're going. Listen, for decades, they've fed us swamp gas, weather balloons.
Alpha, real quickly, I'm just going to give you a heads up. I'm already getting notification that you're having connection problems. FYI, and you haven't even started yet.
And I haven't even started yet. And I'm telling you, all my signals are solid, all of them. So we will figure it out.
It's always me, man. It's always me. I promise you it is. I promise you. It's not a conspiracy, guys.
It's not. And when we did that show Metabiota, all of a sudden I started to have signal issues way back. It forced me to buy a new computer. I don't know if I ever shared that with you, Game, or not, but I had to get an entire
probably after that episode, they probably hacked into your computer and slowed it down a little bit. But yeah, I had a 200 gig per second bandwidth, and it shouldn't have had that many problems that night, but it did. So
well, we will figure it out. We will make it work because this is what we do, right? We improvise, we adapt, we overcome, and that won't change tonight. So don't worry, folks. Even if we got to postpone it, we will. But the information is always going to get out there. But I was saying, swamp gas, weather balloons, Cold War cover stories. But the cracks are showing. Roswell 47, something exotic recovered, hushed forever. Then the leaks. 2004, Nimitz Tic Tacs, flipping physics, no propulsion, impossible maneuvers. I saw some of this stuff myself, folks. 1996, 1997, junior, senior in high school, looked up in the sky and said, I know enough about planes and they can't do that. Then we get 2017, the New York Times drops the videos. Official acknowledgement, begins. Dun dun dun. May 21st, 2023, independent journalist Game Tech, who's here with us tonight, drops a teaser as an ex-Intel analyst turned podcaster. Supernatural beings, spiritual awakening, collapse of world governments, disclosure will be soon. He hosts a space that night, urging people to join, sensing the wave coming. Just weeks later, July 26th, David Grusch testifies under oath. This one was crazy. I heard this one live. Multi-decade crash retrieval programs, intact, non-human craft, biologics pulled from the wreckage, not hearsay, direct from cleared sources. It accelerated 2025 hearings, Navy vets on orbs, ignoring missiles, ocean emerging craft, silent triangles, whistleblowers risk everything, the age of disclosure. I mean, if you guys can't tell, this is going somewhere pretty interesting. 34 officials confirmed that an 80-year blackout, sightings exploding past thousands. This isn't conspiracy anymore. It's congressional record, insider podcast, sworn testimony. The question isn't whether non-human intelligence has been here. It's how long we'll ignore the retrieved tech in our black vaults. Materials with impossible properties, propulsion rewriting gravity. Game Tech called it early. The truth isn't coming. It's already leaking. Time to demand that the vault is open. And this is what I want to say, folks, as I turn it over to Game so he can give his introduction as well. I was approached about a year and a half ago by another person in the podcast community that I know has legitimate sources from other information that they've given me. And no, it's not Josh, because I know that's what everybody's thinking. It wasn't my boy Josh. This was somebody else, and I won't say their name. And this person started to tell me about some of this technology that's out there. And I was trying to grasp the gravity of what was being told to me. And this was one statement that was said to me to kind of put it in perspective. This person said, and if you notice, he's saying this person, yeah, because I'm not even going to tell you guys if it was a man or a woman. Like that's all. This is the way Alpha works when it comes to OPSEC, okay? But this person told me, if I showed up to your house in a UFO hovering above you and said, step into the light, I'm going to beam you up, that would be more believable than what you're going to see over the next 5 to 10 years. And I remember at the time that this was shared with me, I didn't really digest it. But since then, and with a lot of these disclosures and stuff, and the stuff that Game will talk about and I'll ask him questions about, it has really put me in. Everybody says, when's the world going to get back to the way it was? And this is where I'll land my monologue and give it to you, Game. I don't think the world's ever going back to the way it was. I think we are on the doorstep of an age that a lot of us probably can't even imagine. So with that, Game, thanks for being with us tonight. Let us know a little bit about yourself more than I've already shared, and kind of what you tease us with what's coming tonight.
Yeah, well, tonight I want to talk a little bit about the disclosure process, on how things got started, how I got involved, and then as well as the speech. There's rumored of a speech that President Trump will be giving about, well, there's a lot of miscommunication, a lot of errors in the reporting as of lately, and it's kind of frustrating to watch. But the speech is going to be a very monumental speech, but it's not going to be the way that it's not going to be carried out the way that the UFO community wants. It's going to basically speak about the exotic tech. So that's basically what is on our plate tonight, is opening up a chapter. I will give you guys a timeline of when events are going to be taking place, or an estimate of that timeline. Of course, you guys have to understand that timelines do change because of the vast information flow, the vast changes of how our world operates. And so we might get another trend that conflicts with, or not conflicts, but more or less grabs our attention rather than this topic. So we always have to look out for those type of things. But this year, I believe, is the year of disclosure. Dramatic pause.
Dramatic pause. I like it. I will have sound effects for us in the future to really intensify those dramatic pauses game. Let me ask you this. How long have you been aware of, I mean, not just the stuff you're going to share with us tonight, but even some of the stuff that you can't share? Like, how long have you kind of been aware of this stuff game where you've kind of been anticipating, like you knew that this was coming based on, the information you had, but how long has that been for you?
Well, to solidify, I've always had my belief that, we're not alone. I've always had belief that this is a spiritual world rather than a physical world. And Alpha, I have to say that I've been blessed. I truly have been blessed with a lot of people that I've worked with in the background on this story. And I ended up getting it. Officially getting the blueprints of a story that was being worked on in January of 2023. I didn't get any KPIs or anything around that time. I was just aware that a story is taking place, that they were getting a lot of information about a UFO retrieval program. And from there, I fast forward to May, after a couple different back and forths, I decided to take the chance to, because I knew that it was leading up. I knew that the Grusch story from Newsmax would be leading up, and that would be the first explosive news out there. So I ended up taking and doing a space with Jennifer Lawrence and Dustin, and Josh Reed was there. That was the first time that I ever got to meet Josh, which is he is a walking encyclopedia. He's a phenomenal, very intelligent guy. But when I met Josh, he listened to my report about a disclosure event coming within weeks, and he sent me a document. He sent me an article written by two different people that was kind of the blueprint of what I ended up getting in January. So I started asking questions. I was like, who are you, Josh, for one? Because this is basically the blueprint of what I'm, reporting on. And a lot of the contacts that reached out to me after that report, I ended up coordinating with James Fox about 2 weeks later. Now, if you guys don't know who James Fox is a filmmaker. He is a journalist that has been working on the UFO story, UAP stories for decades and decades. He's one of my favorite filmmakers when it comes to UFO topic. He's kind of like the Michael Jordan of UFO documentaries. And we ended up coordinating together 1 day prior to the News Nation report with David Grusch. It was actually 1 day prior to the promo release, because there was a 3-minute interview segment with Ross. We knew that would take place that Monday. So we ended up taking and doing a space highlighting a little bit about UFO topic. It was more or less a puff piece. I'm not going to, I'm very honest with my work. It was a puff piece, kind of introducing James Fox to my audience. And we did, that was an exceptional space, exceptional interview. And then we did another space either prior or shortly after the full interview with David Grusch was released. From there, the contacts with me and the disclosure people, the movement, a lot of journalists, a lot of UFO nerds, as I like to say, they were giving me a little bit of what was going to happen prior to it happening. For instance, in 2024, summer of 2024, I reported on the Vatican meeting with the Biden administration on UFOs. I don't have the deets or the information about how those conversations took place, but there was suggestions and there was a topic about locations. I did this completely off the cuff. I did not have a lot of the meat and potatoes behind that report, but I was comfortable enough to know that what I was being told was completely accurate and vetted. And now we're starting to see that that particular point of reporting was actually phenomenal, because now we're seeing Tim Burchett coming out and talking about those locations. We're hearing about Burleson coming out and talking about locations of buried UFOs. So a lot of the stuff that I get in the back channel about this topic, I have to take it with a grain of salt when it comes from people that I don't know. But the people that originally contacted me in January, those people are just phenomenal. Everything that they say just happens just the way that it is, and with a little exceptions here and there with some hiccups. So fast forward to today. In November, present time, last November, I ended up getting another report about a speech. I reported it, and a guy by the name of Logan. I know you UFO nerds know who I'm talking about, but I went in there and told them that, hey, there is a speech about exotic tech. Now, I don't know where. I know that there's been some UFO people that have been talking about a speech being made on July 8th. I can tell you from my point of view, from my stance, from my sources, I've not had anything thrown at me about that date. Nothing at all. The date that President Trump was supposed to talk about this exotic tech was January 8th through 11th. And the reason being that those dates were important was because of the Venezuela operation down a few weeks prior to January 8th. And President Trump was going to come out and give a speech about that operation, and also highlight the fact that we do have new technology that we have been using, and it is exotic technology. And that was a little bit of a drip of disclosure. That's what the whole speech was designed to do. It was to drip, to give a little bit of information, not the full scope of information, just to get people more aware, to get people talking about this, to get it to trend a little bit further. That way we can start talking about how we ended up getting the tech. And then from there, once we find out how we're getting the tech, then um, the spiritual side of things will hopefully come out as well. Again, we have to understand that President Trump uh, is only in control of the United States. Uh, President Trump is not in control of these rich elite people who have all of the knowledge about this technology. So that's a new piece of information I'm giving out tonight. Is the fact that there are elites that have used this technology, have been studying this technology, and have used science alongside with this technology to create weapons and to create things that is beyond our understanding. Uh, Only if we choose not to understand it. This is a spiritual thing. It's like the faith of a mustard seed. When God said that you can move mountains, you truly can. So I know that that sounds incredible. I know that sounds completely conspiratorial, But that is from my understanding about all of this, from what I've read and from who I've talked to, and just, my consumption of all of this information. It just leads me into that direction.
Well, let me ask you this, and I mean, you kind of, as I've answered this question, but I still want to ask it direct to kind of get a direct answer from you as well. Do you think that the disclosure that is happening right now is like on purpose, or do you think that there's this, resistance that wants to make these leaks come out so they don't have any choice but disclosure?
Well, I think it's the control of the information that is the catalyst, the wedge of everything. It's not allowing us to know the true nature and the spirituality of things, because once we find that information, it's kind of like a balance, the yin and yang. The more people that know about this knowledge, the more peaceful the world is going to be. The more it's kind of like a, and I'm not talking, I'm not a communist, people. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But it's kind of like, if every single person in this world, every single person takes and does, looks out for the next person and helps them with their goals, and concentrates on those goals of the meek and the poor. It's kind of like what Christ was saying on the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount. Once we collect those principles and we act on those principles spiritually, then all of that negative stuff will kind of be pushed out, and we're going to start living in more of a peaceful world if we have that knowledge. If we have that knowledge on how to act appropriately in our own lives, then we can get closer to God. Basically, this is like, again, this is a spiritual thing. So what these people have done is that they've limited our knowledge of all of this biblical stuff, this religious stuff. They've restricted our knowledge on a lot of it on purpose, so that way the balance is more on their hands than on ours. Does that make sense?
It does. So is the balance or this kind of slow drip disclosure, is that at the benefit of, us, like the people side, or is that at the benefit of them that have to control this information?
Well, there's a lot of people there's a lot of good people in the retrieval program. I'm only giving you an answer from what I know. I don't know the particulars of that answer outside of what I'm about to say. But there are a lot of scientists right now that want to get into the public sector rather than the government sector. And this is just an opinion, guys. Do not take this as gold, okay? This is just my collection of thoughts on why they're doing what they're doing. So this is not true at all. This is just Game Tech's opinion. Please don't use this and say it's the truth, because I don't know. But I believe that they plateaued. I believe that these scientists have plateaued in their studies. And not just that, but I believe that they also are exhausted, and they've seen a lot of death by their colleagues, and they've seen a lot of fear mongering going on. So they want to get out of that. And if you go and listen to the David Grusch testimony, you're going to see why I come to that conclusion. You're going to see, like, again, you listening to everything in the background and then the additional of all the public information that's come out, you're going to see that the number one goal out of David Grush's testimony wasn't just to get the exotic tech out. It wasn't just to get the UFO retrieval out into the public sphere, that information. It was mainly to protect the whistleblowers. It was mainly to protect the scientists that have been working on this stuff. That's who David Grusch was there to protect. And that was his number one ultimate goal. And if you listen to his testimony, he emphasizes that. He emphasizes that our government and other governments had killed people that have been in, that have worked in this program. So that's kind of why I think that the we're getting this out more so than a spiritual nature. I think that the scientists have want to retire, and they want to pass off all of this information to other independent scientists around the world, so that way they can take and carry on all of that study that they've done. And I hope that answer, I know that that's not a sufficient answer, but I hope that clarifies a little bit about why some of the things are taking place. I don't know why as a whole it's coming out, but I know that in that particular case, it's because there's a lot of science. There's a few dozen scientists that want to get out of their NDA and out of their position.
I can definitely understand that. You know, we were talking about, this blackout period. That's, what, 8 decades, almost, if not longer. When you look at this through the lens of game tech, when does this timeline start for you? Is it the first public? Is it Roswell? Because a lot of people kind of think that when they think, aliens or UFOs, or is there something even prior to that? Like, where does the timeline of all this start for you through your understanding and your knowledge?
Through ancient technology that they found, and this they found this. I don't know the exact year, but it's definitely not in our own country's lifetime.
So, so this is good. I'm enjoying this. So when we're talking ancient, man, are we talking hundreds of years, or are we talking thousands
That's
of years?
that's the $1,000,000 question.
And you're not going to answer it for me yet.
I really did. The technology and the spiritual side of things has been restricted for a long time. You have to understand, Satan's a very, very great trickster. So our science has been manipulated. Our information has been manipulated. Once we get all of that, that's why you hear a lot of talk about energy, and you hear a lot of talk about Trump concentrating on energy and minerals and stuff. It's because of this tech.
And no, and I get it, and man, that there's a whole other conversation that we can branch off from this one when it comes to Satan and the trickery that comes with that. I mean, we hear it today, especially through propaganda. Give them their hero so that way you control them through their own hero. You don't think that that's a concept that came from the devil? And like I said, that would take us down a whole different path. But I'm there with you. So then, given that, I mean, this is ancient technology that just goes back a very, very long time. If you had to pick 5 milestones in this timeline to bring us to now with these disclosures, what would be those 5 milestones to you?
One of the first one is Leonardo da Vinci's work. That would be a milestone because there's been a lot of talk in the background about different relics and different writings and also paintings. There's a mirror. He did a lot of paintings with a mirror, and he also put a lot of cryptic, and there's also writings that we don't have, that's not out in the main, like they restrict it completely. It's like it's classified. There's a lot of classified documents from that era that talks about technology, that talks about spiritual beings, and it's the only. Here's the thing. Imagine this, guys. This will kind of put it into perspective on how they've restricted this information. What other book do we have? What other pieces of old ancient texts do we have other than the Bible about this topic? And why? Why is it now that we're starting to see these things when we have instances and we have hieroglyphs, we have ancient text, we have paintings showing these UFOs and paintings, we have a lot of information that is out there, but imagine all of the information that is restricted. Imagine that, and it's restricted. It is. So by taking and looking at the Leonardo da Vinci era, there's a lot of texts that talk about technology, that talk about spirituality and about consciousness. And from what I've learned, is that a lot of what we're seeing today being played out with Epstein. Listen, I understand what the majority of you in the audience, why you're passionate about Epstein. So what I'm about to say is not a minimization of the sinister shit behind Epstein. But Epstein is, if you guys can just draw back your lens, look at everything, you'll understand that these elites, along with Epstein, wasn't just about human trafficking, sex trafficking, and murders. They were studying this stuff. They were studying the UFO stuff. They were studying neuroscience. They were studying spatial, spatial imagery, and controlling people's minds, and taking away the free will. And that's another report that I did in November of 2023, that they have technology to take a person's free will. And I got ridiculed. I mean, professionally, I took a chance to report something like that because I knew that it was 100% true. It's just not out into the fold that it is. Now it's getting there. Now you're hearing about the taking away the free will today. And I was reporting that years ago. And no one would listen. They listened to me about the metabiota stuff, but the metabiota stuff was basically initiated by the Epstein team, those elites, the Nathan Wolfs, the Ghislaine Maxwells. That's who is in control of all of the information, all of it. And once people start highlighting the dark science, because you're not going to get any accountability with the sex trafficking, you're not going to get any accountability with the murders until you find accountability for the human rights violations of them using the mind control and using this exotic technology that they've gotten from these beings. We're not going to get accountability until that information opens up.
I'll make a comment to that real quick, Dan. And for those that saw DEFCON last night with me and Josh, you'll have heard this before. But it goes to what you're saying with, and again, not to minimize the atrocities that these people have done to the most innocent, but I think a lot of us would say, yeah, we don't trust mainstream media. We don't trust the majority of the government officials, if not almost all of them. So when these people start to come out and say, yeah, they were doing these, Pizzagate, maybe it was real. And you know what, Marina Abramovich, when they're willing to throw these people under the table, this reminds me of, and this is what I shared last night on the show game. I go and I stop this guy. This is back when the detective days of law enforcement. And I catch him with some drugs and some payo sheets. And I hit him up about this. And then this is a guy I had history with. Like this dude was just a POS, like just not a good person, folks. And he's like, yeah, man, I made a bad decision. I don't know what I was thinking. And I'm like, wait, this dude has never admitted to the stuff that I caught him doing. Why is he admitting to the sales of these drugs that I caught him with? So immediately red flag went up and said, if he's willing for me to take him to jail for this, what the hell is here that I'm not seeing yet? What do I need to investigate that I'm not investigating yet? And so I kind of put this into what you were saying here. If they're willing to acknowledge all this stuff, then we need to take a step back, because these people have never told us the damn truth before, and be like, okay, what's really under the what rug have we not looked under, and what's really going on? And I think, yourself, and I've heard Josh mention it too, when people start to hear the science of what was done to the most innocent, I mean, that's absolutely terrifying. And I'll give it back to you again.
Yeah, there's a remarkable journalist that I absolutely adore. His name is James Rosen. Please follow him, James Rosen TV. He works for Newsmax. He's a White House correspondent, and he wrote a book about Richard Nixon. So you might have to. I'll give him a heads up that you're contacting him, Alpha, that you're doing in Richard Nixon, because now you won't be able to get him on your podcast because he has contractual obligation. You know the media business, so but you can get a lot of questions answered that is not in his books, or he's got a lot of information that he hasn't published yet. So but he gave me a really great advice back in 2021. He DM'd me and he said, look at what's unseen rather than what's seen. And that is the biggest, the best advice as a journalist that I've ever gotten from somebody is don't pay attention to what people are talking about. Pay attention to what they're not talking about and dig from there. And then start asking questions, because once you start asking those questions, then their eyebrows are going to raise, and they're going to know that you're in the right direction of what you're not supposed to see. And that is how I ended up breaking the metabiota story. Was because of that advice. It really truly was. It was. I ended up getting that hard drive, and a few weeks after that, I got the DM from James and said, "Hey, look at what's unseen rather than what's seen." And so I found the metabiota story rather than concentrating on the prostitution and the drugs. And I can see that media. I can see the media at work with this Epstein stuff, because they're forcing people to concentrate on stuff that they want them to concentrate on. Do you guys understand that now? Now your audience is waking up to all this. They're like, "Oh shit, we've been concentrating on, Epstein and Lex Wexner a little bit too much. Now concentrate on the Nathan Wolfs and the neuroscientists around Epstein, and you guys are going to open up a can of worms. I promise you." But again, a lot of those documents are not going. The documents that are the meat and potatoes behind the neuroscience studies that Epstein was involved in. That's not going to come out. It's not. It's like pulling teeth to even get metabiota trending with these politicians. They know about it. I'm certain of that. But they don't. They want you to focus on other things, and what we need to do is focus on the things that they're not talking about and get that to trend. Because once we have the power and the ability to get something to trend, the right people pay attention. And if the right people pay attention, they're in President Trump's ear about that information. I guarantee you. I've dealt with these situations before, and I've seen it. And it's like with the UFO stuff with Laura Trump. People get back to them fairly quickly when somebody's highlighting the right thing.
Here's one of the things I'll add to that, and then I promise I'll bring us right back to the aliens, folks. Don't don't worry. A lot of conversations surrounding Susie Wiles, and being the gatekeeper of information. Well, a very trusted person. I don't like to call him a source. Just a very trusted person told me that one person that Susie Wiles has absolutely no control over, whether they get in front of President Trump or not, is his boy Barron. So an avenue for us to consider is to put a lot of this information on Barron's social media and get Barron's attention, so Barron can get it to his father. It's just just the pathway that I wanted to put out there. I want to play a clip real quick. It's just under a
Isn't
minute.
Baron a time traveler though?
You know, he might be. Listen, I'll tell you, game. You talked to me 6 years ago. No, let's a little bit longer now. We're in 2026. You talked to me about 8, 9 years ago, and half the stuff that we talk about in these spaces, like if I would have met Josh, and thanks for taking that co-host, you guys make sure you're giving this man a solid follow as well. If I would have met Josh 8 years ago, I would have been filling out Welfare and Institutions Code 5150 and putting them in a crazy house. I would have been like, this dude's nuts. But I mean, we've, in part because of disclosures and whistleblower testimony, now all of a sudden we do have legitimacy to a lot of these conversations that were once considered just extreme conspiracy theory. So this video, hopefully I can hear it, or you guys can hear it. It's about a minute long, and this has to go with David Grusch's testimony. And I believe this is the part about the non-human biologics. And I just want people to be able to hear this themselves as we have this conversation. So I'm going to hit play, and then if you guys don't hear audio within a few seconds, somebody let me know, and then we'll just carry on.
Government is in possession of UAPs.
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
Do you believe
You heard it with your own ears, folks. But here's what I want to ask you, Game, and Josh, feel free to interject with a question for Game Tech as soon as you feel up to speed on everything. Do people kind of get stuck on aliens? Because just kind of listen to the conversation that we're having here, and the conversation of the testimony from David Grusch. It seems like it almost like they want to focus more on like the capability of the technology versus, the quote unquote aliens. I mean, am I off on that, or what would you say to that statement?
Well, I think that you have to concentrate on who's asking the question first. That's what I do. That's where my brain goes, and why the question's being asked. Because during that, was the July one. Luna was the one who was asking that question, and I ended up. I know that you guys know. Well, I did a report on the second hearing, and from that report, I found out that Luna wasn't going to be at that hearing. Her communications director talked to me and said that she had something else scheduled during that day, that she would only be there in the back room for a minute, and then she would go out, that she would hand off some questions to another congressional member, yada yada yada. Well, she ended up being there that day, and her questions were very scripted. So that's kind of who that's what when those congressional hearings happen, I look at who's asking it, why, and where are they getting the questions from, because they're not written by themselves. They're not. So there's always a reason why certain questions are asked, and how they're asked as well. That's kind of an introduction. That's kind of like a puff piece question for Mr. Grusch. It was a designed question to get people to focus on the realness of these alien beings. It wasn't really a design to get people to think about the physical nature of their bodies. It was just to allow people to understand that there are beings with this craft. And I think if you take and go a few months later after that hearing and you listen to Tucker Carlson, you'll hear him explain a lot of what I'm saying right there. You'll hear a lot about the spiritual side of what Luna was suggesting to, but more in a deeper and more in a thoughtful, more collected way. That was just a generic question with a generic answer to introduce the public to basically solidify the fact that there are beings with these crafts. That was the whole point of that question.
And it got my attention because, it's non-human biologics. When I listen to some of these guys' testimonies or even other people talk about it, the layperson like myself, right? And when I go back to 1996, 97, when I saw stuff at an altitude in the sky that I was like, yeah, could be a satellite or, high flying military aircraft. But then I see it making these maneuvers. And, the way I would explain it is I saw it doing this weird stuff. But when you listen to these guys speak, they're not making the statement of, we observed something weird. They're making the statements of, we observed something that breaks physics. And can you kind of explain to the audience, because you would do a better job than me, what that suggests when we're not talking about something weird, but something that actually breaks physics?
It doesn't break physics. It breaks our understanding of the false science that's been filtered to us. That's what it breaks. It breaks the falseness of everything that we've been taught, and it breaks it down. And people will realize that a lot of this science that's been pushed out in schools and elsewhere, that's what the whole thing is that's what it breaks down. I don't know how to explain it more eloquently. Maybe Josh can, but that's what it comes down to.
Feel free to fire off, Josh, if you want.
Yeah, if you go back to the Sean Ryan episode with retired Lieutenant General Stephen Quast, he talks about this specifically. He says that Einstein taught us about relativity, and Einstein even said from the get-go that his theory was wrong, and we've learned today that relativity is wrong, that his theory is wrong. But see, what's happened over the course of the last 50, 60 years is that you've institutionalized science. And through that institutionalization of science through various different universities, which have a monopoly on science, whether it's through peer review systems or whatnot,
Let
there
me give
are
the name. Let me give the name of
no,
some
hold
of
on,
those
hold on, gang.
universities.
There's grants that come about that basically distribute billions of dollars each year to these large universities. And this $1 billion has been kind of earmarked for various different scientific inquiry. For in physics, primarily, over the last 30 years, that has been something known as string theory, which is abhorrently incorrect and wrong. And the majority of the standard physics people out there will tell you it's wrong, but that's where all the funding is going, and that's why it is the prevailing leading theory. But that is, I think, a kind of the same and similar context of why the U.S. withheld nuclear secrets and classified mathematics and nuclear secrets is it's a deviation away from actually figuring out the truth of real physics. And so they've done this over the last 50 years to ensure that humanity stayed within a controlled technological state that was dependent upon a system that was monopolized by the power figures. And where we are at today is the realization that that was all bullshit. And with AI and ASI coming forth, that is going to be turned around really, really fast. Sorry, Game, for cutting you off, but go ahead, bud.
No, I wanted to highlight you spoke about the colleges that have been kind of systematically taking control of information. I wanted to highlight that I do have some of those colleges' names. Caltech is one of them, Harvard Math and Science, MIT, and Stanford. Those are where a lot of the scientists come from. And when he talked about the timing of technology being pushed out. The way that I can explain that in a colorful way is look at the 60s, look at the culture of the 60s, then look at the culture of the 70s, then look at the culture of the 80s, and then look at the culture of the 90s. You see how it's progressed? It's the same with technology. They've progressed society in a structured way that they want to form, rather than a society that God wanted to form.
The conversation is fascinating to listen to you guys on this. Let me ask you this then, since we now have, expert, statements that there is non-human biologics. The other thing I want to make sure, because I want to separate, fact from fiction, and we've heard that there's been the recovery of materials, and in some of the readings, whether you watch the documentary or you watch the podcast, some of the things that I've heard is that these materials that they have found have impossible properties. And so the question that comes to my mind is, A, what do they exactly mean by that? And two,
Consciousness.
oh shit. Was not expecting that answer. Well, if that's if that's the situation, how do you test something like that?
Neuroscience.
All right, you got to break that down for me a little bit more, Game Tech. Marine that eats crayons, man.
But I'm retarded. I don't understand it. That's the limitations of my brain.
Well, okay, well, what was the question and what needed to be explained?
So, and when I watch a lot of these documentaries and I listen to some of these testimonies and these podcasts with a lot of these people that, scientists or pilots, and they say, hey, we've actually recovered material, right? From these things that are not from our planet. And one of the terms that I've seen, and I've heard this term repeated more than once, and that's why it stuck out, was that some of these things have impossible properties. And so I was kind of like, what does that exactly mean? Which Game, responded consciousness. And then the follow-up to that was, if you're finding this stuff with impossible properties, how would you test it?
Oh, so, okay. Well, number one is I've talked about this before. And this is kind of been explained to me. Is yes, we've like David Grusch was saying. Yes, we've recovered these things. We actually know a great deal about them. We've been able to reverse engineer massive amounts of technology from these things. Did I lose connection?
No, you're good. Maybe we did lose connection.
Yeah, he gave himself the axe on that one. Can you hear us, Josh? Because we could still hear you. All right, yeah, he's having some issues because I got a decline, so he'll reset and he'll come back. So, do you want to kind of take over that statement or add to what you were saying on that Game until he does come back?
Well, my brain has limitations, Alpha. I mean, I can't understand half of what I read that gets thrown at me, to be honest. And I'm just being genuine. I'm being sincere. Like this stuff that gets thrown at me, it's like trigonometry to me, and so I don't understand this whole consciousness thing. I just repeat what I hear. That's all I do. Is just repeat what I hear from extraordinary people, and that's what they've given to me. But I haven't really delved into having a conversation further about that, about the intricacies of things. And the reason being is not because of laziness or lazy journalism. It's just because I don't feel like I know my lane. I don't feel like I'm the one to ask those pertinent questions and try to understand them. I leave it to people like Josh or people that are in the UFO community to kind of expand on a lot of this stuff, because they're the ones that's smart. They're the ones that have taken and studied this way further than I have. So when I repeat something, you guys have to know that I'm repeating it, and I'm not, like I'm batting 1,000. So you have to put that into the perspective there. That if I'm batting 1,000, then what I'm saying is I'm literally just repeating it like a parrot, and I don't understand it all. So if I come out with something and I'm repeating it, I really I rely on people like Josh. I rely on people like the UFO community to kind of translate it for me. But I know that consciousness is a part of these machines, and consciousness is a part of these beings as well. And consciousness is also a part of our existence.
Well, if you think it's complicated for you, you can pretty much. It's like you're telling me to hear colors. Like that's how complicated it gets in my world. And it looks like Josh is made his way back. So hopefully he can connect right now, and it shows that he's connecting.
All
It's
right,
kind of,
can you hear me now? Because someone is
yes.
making an attempt to make sure I don't fucking say anything.
You're solid. We can hear you, Josh. Go ahead and fire off,
Okay,
man. We're looking forward.
I heard bits and pieces of what Game was saying, but um, going back to it, like this technology, we reverse engineered a lot of it, and we've had like the quintessential anti-gravity, which by the way, it's not anti-gravity technology. The whole idea of anti-gravity technology that's being considered today with creating gravity wells with immense energy is nonsense. It's not how any of this stuff works. You use it's asymmetric field disruption is what they're doing, and I can explain that at length here in a little bit. But
It's synthetic. It's synthetic.
well, it's not well. Here's the key: is that the problem with the technology. One of the main reasons why this technology has never been kind of commercialized or released. Well, some of it has. You're probably holding it in your phone right in your hand right now with your phone. But the reason why is because it re- it it needs an infrastructure in order to operate. An infrastructure that was not possible up until today. And what I'm talking about with that infrastructure is a three-part component system. Number one is quantum computers, not large, big, bulky quantum computers that are doing, 1024 qubits. We're talking about super intelligent quantum computers beyond the capacity of anything we can develop today that fit in the palm of your hand. And they use, I'll talk about the technology here in a second. Secondly, you need an artificial intelligence infrastructure that integrates directly with consciousness, because the amount of computations that need to occur within these gravitational craft are beyond our ability to compute with everyday average computer systems. Typically, AI can process that at certain levels, but consciousness is actually the best director of that logical format. So the biggest problem with technology is it's not like they've been holding this off and keeping it secret to develop it in secret. Yeah, they want to militarize it, but they themselves haven't had the ability to utilize them at the full extent. And so you're not going to go out there and release this technology to the world unless you truly do understand it and you have the infrastructure to actually sustain it. So the technology that we're actually talking about is, from what I got from my sources, which are very similar to game sources, is you have three variables of technology that they've acquired over the course of the last 100 years. Number one is your quintessential extraterrestrial technology. Most of this has actually came about through what we call crashes, or by just they land these vehicles and then they just leave them there. And that's actually very concerning, but that is the truth. The other part is what we have, what David Grusch mentions as interdimensionals. And when you hear interdimensionals, don't think about the sci-fi aspect of interdimensional. Just think about phase orientation of matter. What do I mean by that? We have an idea of dark matter and dark energy that exists in the universe. Basically, 93 to 95% of the entire universe is unknown to us. We don't know what it is. We only know the effects of it, the field interactions, and matter is only about, 3 to 5% of the actual universe. Well, in actuality, what we're in contact with in our visual and our physical spectrum is a 3% phase orientation of the universe. In other words, there's 97% of different phase frequencies of the universe that we're not in touch or tune with. And if a civilization becomes highly advanced, they could exist at, let's say, a 7% phase orientation. And that means that they could directly interact with people like us who are in a 3 to 5% phase orientation. And so we would look at that as like they're popping through interdimensional portals, but in actuality, all they're doing is just looking through, a wormhole or something. So you got to kind of change your paradigm of ideas on some of these concepts. Going into the other part is some of these craft that we've recovered were actually recovered here on Earth, but buried in ruins. From what I've heard is you've had Afghanistan and Iraq being two of the primary places. Mexico is a huge one, and Ukraine. Also Antarctica and Greenland as various other parts where they've recovered some of these craft. Russ Colthport and a few other people have talked about this one craft that the U.S. government is in possession of that was so large they couldn't move it, so they had to build a whole facility around it. That's in South Korea. And there's another one actually in the United States, but I'm not going to give that location away.
It's in Oklahoma.
Oh, okay. Because I told everybody it was the desert
I'm
to kind of
sorry.
give
I
them
have a big
ideas, but
mouth.
yeah. But so when we understand this is that tells us that there's three variations of intelligence that we're dealing with. Number one is something that is ethereal, something that is supernatural in our current perspective that exists beyond our dimensionality. It doesn't mean it's more advanced than us. It doesn't mean that it's superior to us. It just can interact with us differently than how we can interact with it. The other one is extraterrestrial. I want to bring in the same corrective paradigm on this. Just because a civilization is extraterrestrial and they're able to travel between star systems doesn't mean they're more evolved, doesn't mean they're more advanced, and doesn't mean they're superior. They simply could have just been evolved in a different environment to where gravity was the first force of manipulation that they learned how to control, and maybe they don't know anything about electromagnetism, right? So we have to take that into consideration. And the
Well,
third, I
let
think, is the
me.
most.
Oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead and do the third. I don't want you to lose that.
Yeah, the third is ancient civilizations or contact with these civilizations that used to be here on the planet. And this is the one where it starts to get really interesting. This ties into Epstein, Atlantis, what they were doing off the coast of Cuba, things that I've talked about on my shows before that is now just coming out. And other people are like, look what I discovered. I'm like, dude, I discovered that fucking years ago. But this is the idea that this is not humanity's first rodeo, that 5,000 years ago, we weren't Neanderthals coming out of the forest and starting civilization in the Fertile Crescent. We were a post-apocalyptic or a post-Diluvian society coming out after, a millennia of trauma that had devastated the planet and redeveloping civilization. And that this technology that they've found, and the Vatican handed over a craft in 1939 to the United States government. And that craft was actually gotten from an archaeological dig. I know David Grusch actually talks about that. But that is from a highly advanced prior Earth civilization of human beings that existed between 50,000 to 25,000 years ago.
Let
But
me
go ahead,
ask
Alpha.
you. Let me ask you and game this then Josh, and listen to. And with the understanding that a lot of these accounts for sightings are legitimate, especially the ones coming from military personnel or people in the government in some form or fashion. When we see these reports of like the orbs, and it coming from the ocean or the triangles, what are the patterns that matter most to you guys? Is it these things because they're ocean adjacent? Is it because of the proximity to like military facilities or nuclear sites that we've seen it in some reports? Or
That's
is
a
it the
good question.
timing of these things?
We bait them. Our military baits them. Our military, our naval, our Navy does warhead training or nuclear training. What's it called, Josh? What's that nuclear training called? I can't remember. It's off the top of my head, but there have been heavily, like in 2004 specifically, we would send out, we would do training on these warships, nuclear training, and it was under the guise of training. I mean, that's what the soldiers were thinking in their head, but in reality, the higher ups, they were basically baiting these UFOs to come into their general area. And they've done this heavily. I mean, every single day they would run into dozens and dozens of these craft. And when I say like every single day, I mean every single day for pretty much up until today. That's how frequent these sightings are with our military.
And to add on to this is there's various different phenomena that have occurred. There's more kind of rarefied phenomena that we've seen throughout the decades, and these are kind of the one-offs with various different triangular craft and stuff like that, to the orbs that we see on a more consistent basis. And one thing about the UFO community, and I think that this is definitely a disclaimer for everybody out there, is that there is an evolution of sightings, and we have to understand that the psychological component of our brains trying to make sense of something that normally we don't understand is absolutely a factor. And what I mean by that is if you look at evolutions of sightings uh, from from Arnold on forth. He talks about, originally the first UFO sighters, Kenneth Arnold. He talked about these craft that skipped off the atmospheres like discs or saucers, and that's where the term flying saucer was actually derived from. And then people started seeing flying saucers. Well, guess what? Kenneth Arnold didn't see flying saucers. He saw craft, actually triangular in nature. He said that they skipped. So you have the psychological component of when you're seeing something that doesn't make sense to your mind tries to fill in the gaps with with your known kind of social and ideal construct that you have in your mind. And this is why we have a deviation of sightings over the years, and you can even see this trend line over the years of how they go from saucers, they go to circular craft to triangle craft to kind of more drone. And a lot of this is also the idea of advancing human technology over the last decades. But going in to talk about the oceanic ones, this is a different phenomena altogether than kind of the overall UFO phenomena that we know of. From what I've gathered on this, and I know that there's going to be a lot of people in the community that disagree with me on this, is this is part of the ancient civilization connection, that these orbs are autonomous. They are not intelligently controlled, although they can be, and that they do deploy from various different parts of the ocean. We had a run-in with one just outside the Galapagos Islands, about 100 miles to the west of the Galapagos Islands. When we were deployed out there, we chased this thing. The helo chased it. We watched it submerge into the water. Um, on a FLIR. And these things have kind of base camps out there that are so far underwater that we could never get to. What do I believe it is a few different things. Number one is I believe it's an ancient Earth defense system, autonomous, that if it detects some type of threat, and it uses quantum sensing to do this, if it detects some type of threat, it'll absolutely move to that area to try to engage or to respond to it. Um, but here's the part that's kind of interesting. I think it's potentially a breakaway human civilization that actually still exists. At least that's my thoughts. Highly advanced human civilization. They primarily live under the water. They realized a long time ago there's two deviations of man: them who survived the cataclysm, those who didn't want to interfere with a new developing civilization. So they stayed hidden, and they slowly, push humanity to technological progress. I think that this is what is meant with Bigelow when he says that they look like us and they walk among us. I don't think that what it is that walks among us and looks like us is a different species. I believe it is us. And I don't believe it's a Nazi breakaway civilization. I think it's something much, much more ancient.
Well, let me ask both you guys this, and just I see there's a there's a line like we're the most popular club of people that want to come up here and ask questions, and I promise folks, as long as these gentlemen have time, before we close this up, we'll bring people through and we'll cycle through and give you guys an opportunity to ask a question or make a statement. But one of the things that I want to ask you, Josh and Game Tech, when we look at humanity, we have good guys and we have bad guys that are evil. You know, we briefly talked about Epstein earlier. When we talk about these, whatever this is, this alien technology, right, or extraterrestrial, you know, and I understand the way you kind of broke that down, Josh. Is it safe to assume that even in the realm of a higher intelligence or alien life, that there's also this evil side and good side? Or is this something that's just present for humanity because maybe we just haven't ascended to like what aliens are, and good versus evil is not an issue when you get into that level of intelligence? Am I making sense?
Yes, I put out a controversial post about that particular question and what the consent. And now this is just the consensus amongst congressional members and DC and even some of the scientists out there, is that these beings are now, again, there's a lot, I'm telling you, this is very, very debatable in the background. And I got a lot of backlash for even putting this out, but I just had to repeat it because I mean, that is the consensus amongst what these congressional members think, is that these things are demons. That's true, Alpha. Like these like people like Andre Carson and a lot of maybe they won't say it publicly, maybe they'll deny what I'm saying. But if you press them in the background, they'll say it because I've heard it said. And they think that these the beings that we see are demons. And but do now, my opinion, I believe that there are demons and angels that are on Earth, uh, taking different forms. That's why with Josh, uh, they do walk among us. We just they look like us, and so kind
Well,
of that's the gist of things, that there's angels and demons, and they take on all kinds of forms. So, and that's the
well,
consensus amongst DC. That's not the consensus amongst Game Tech. I have no clue. Don't come at me with that.
let me jump in before you add, because I'm almost sure you're going to want to add to this, Josh. And let me ask a question that's somewhat controversial. What happens to society if the answers that we get through these disclosures and evidence starts to challenge the core beliefs of religion or human exceptionalism?
So great question, Alpha, and not that I'm disagreeing with Game on that, and he's absolutely right that this is the discussion that's going on in Congress right now. But if you go through the history of kind of the think tanks that have developed over this is one of the primary questions of how does disclosure affect societal structure, culture, and religion? And the reason they're asking that question is because they already know the answer. Now, we can call it angels and demons. We can call it extraterrestrials and interdimensionals. It doesn't matter what we call it. What you have to understand is that it's all an expression of consciousness. Whether it's an angel, a demon, an interdimensional, extraterrestrial, a human, an ancient human, they're all simply expressions of consciousness within the plane of existence that we all live in. And we can align any ideological reference frame we want to them, but it doesn't change the fact that they're real and that they exist, and that honestly we don't know fucking shit about them other than what we have through kind of lore and mythology and religion. Now, is there a present evil, as you were saying? Yes, there absolutely is. You and I talked about that the other night on DEF CON with Dulce and a lot of that. But here's the one reassuring factor about that evil is it can be assumed that that evil that exists on this planet is in far less numbers and is inferior to our civilization. And the reason I say that is because look where we are at right now in civilization. We are on the brink of developing artificial superintelligence, which is going to speed us up over 500 years in technological evolution in less than 20 years. And there is no constraints from any evil standing in our way other than the taking out of the deep state and the cabal, which has been completely dismantled. In other words, the evil in this world is losing the war. And if they had full control or superiority technologically at any point, we would already be done. We would already be depopulated by 85%. The New World Order would already be here. The slave system and control state would already be there. So that tells me that there is at least a minimum, a balance within those power structures of that intelligence that exists on this planet, whether it's angels and demons, interdimensionals, or extraterrestrials, or a collaboration of all of those that have some ideological reference to all of that. Does that make sense?
It
Yeah,
does.
absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, Gabe.
I was just going to say, after this little segment, we can get into the speech and the timeline of this speech that's rumored. I got a little bit of, just a little bit, guys, not much, but I got a little bit of information this week on that. I knew I connected with Alpha as soon as I got that information, and that's kind of why I wanted to have him open up a space tonight to push that information out. So that'll be next, and it's a very short little segment. I'm just going to kind of give you guys the time frame of speech about exotic tech, and then that is just going to be a drip. I already warned you that this speech isn't going to be sufficient for you UFO nerds out there, but it is. In all hindsight, it truly is. You guys should be excited about this. However, don't be selfish and say, well, is that it? No, it's just a little drip. And I promise you there's more to come, but this needs to be calculated in this way. This can't be just here, okay, guys, here it is, just like the Epstein files. Because this is different than the Epstein files. If they dropped, okay, here it is, guys, you guys are, there's going to be chaos. There's going to be, it's going to freak people out how our faith like a mustard seed can actually happen. You understand? Like you guys can actually open up that faith of a mustard seed and make things happen for yourself that counters all the bad shit in your life. That's how I understand it. So I'll give you the time frame as soon as Alpha wants me to give it.
Yeah, let me ask you two more questions to close out this segment. We'll move into that, and then after that, we'll bring some people up here to ask you questions and interact with you guys. So the first question I want to ask you guys, and I think this is important regardless of any topic out there. You know, I by no means am I the expert in when it comes to this particular topic, but I've watched, you know, documentaries over a long period of time, and I know that a lot of you have really invested, you know, a large portion of your life, and some of you that have come into this room, this is probably like your main thing. So let me ask you this, Josh and Game, moving forward right now, how do people separate information from, all right, this is evidential, or this has evidentiary value and it's reliable, versus people out there that are trying to claim authority and trying to hijack the fact that they know that this soft disclosure is coming out there, because you know people are people want to make a profit, people want to grift. How do people that are listening to you guys don't fall victim to the fake stuff but catch the real stuff so they understand what's actually being disclosed in real time?
If you hear a brand new piece of information, specifically like this whole speech thing, that's a great question because it really goes into the speech thing. In November of last year, I talked about that speech. I talked about why the speech was going to happen and the content of the blueprint, like the talking points of the speech. And when a few weeks later, I hear a it's like completely, they hit home on Trump giving one. They put the date as July 8th. I don't know why July 8th was put out there, because I guess it's the Roswell anniversary, yada yada yada. But it's quite the opposite of what I heard. So when I personally hear stuff into them that gets trending on the mainstream, the first question that the audience needs to ask themselves is, why is it trending? Why? What's being said in the background to get that to trend? And two, who is the original source? If the original source has a solidified background and has covered this, um, then there could be some truth to it. But if it's basically like a game of telephone, you hear a story and then you pass it on to the next person, they hear it and they miss a couple words, but they try to fill it in with their own, and then it changes the whole dynamic of the report. It changes the whole dynamic of the story. So if you find that a story has had dynamics changed, periodically, then I really would be careful with taking and looking at that report as being accurate, because there is a
Yeah.
lot of falseness out there.
Agreed. And here's the thing: is it's not it's every community where you're just going to get exaggeration and propagation of information. The first thing I'll speak on is Trump's speech. So right now, what we're going through is something known as narrative seeding. Laura Trump has, in the last 2 weeks, addressed this idea that Trump was asked about it in a personal relationship, and he has a speech ready. Then she repeated it again yesterday. This is narrative seeding. This is being done intentionally. Now, from what I gather, and I don't know if Game covered this, was the speech that he is going to make, I believe later this year, I think it's going to be more closer to the midterms, it might be July, is going to be the acknowledgement of UAP phenomena, and that we are investigating and researching this phenomena, and that they will release all the information that they have, declassify certain things, very similar to Project Blue Book, Project Grudge, stuff like that. It's not going to be an acknowledgement of ETs or extraterrestrials or saying that we're not alone. But the seeding, from what I gather, is in preparation for the next few years. And this is where things get really interesting. Now, with all those people that are just propagating bullshit into the communities and saying whatever they feel, the Pleiadians told them or whatever, all of that will be old news when the truth comes out. And I think that we all understand that. But we are heading right now towards a technological exponential advancement. I cannot stress this stress this enough. A 500-year leap in less than 20 years. We will obtain artificial superintelligence in approximately the next 3 to 5 years. What does that mean? We cannot even fathom artificial superintelligence. We would not be able to even keep up with the understanding of the information this thing puts out. Now, in the context of kind of like space geopolitics, right, or exopolitics, as Michael Salla likes to say, if you have an advancing civilization, you get what's called like first contact when they develop faster than light travel, their ability to travel between star systems, not because they want to say, hello, neighbor, how are you? It's because of the level of interference that they can bring to developing civilizations or the threats that they can bring to other planetary systems. And so faster than light travel isn't the only technology out there that brings about this first contact type of scenario. And this is actually real discussions that are going on in the freaking Pentagon right now. What their worry is that artificial superintelligence, when it comes about, will initiate a first contact. Reason being, because if we lose control of artificial superintelligence and it wipes out humanity and leaves this planet with the technology it develops, it could be a threat to any other advanced civilization in this galaxy. Hence why, during that time of its creation, in and around, we would have a first contact type of scenario. And this is why you're getting the narrative seeding in preparation for these types of announcements that are most likely going to come within the next 2 to 3 years. From what I gather is 2027 is that 26, 27, or yeah, this year and next year is that time frame.
Well, then here's this that kind of sets up this last question I have, and then we'll move into the final segment for you, game.
Let me get to the before we get to the hands. Let me get to the time frame of when the initial speech about exotic tech is going to happen.
100%. So here's the last question for you fellas, because you know me, I'm always thinking like military operations, military strategy. Is this, you know, is there, like when we look at AI, you know, a lot of the conversations right now is we're in an AI race with China, you know, or the CCP specifically. With this, what we're talking about, you know, these technologies, these things that are, you know, probably not from our planet, or however you want to define it. Is this an individual country's race with this stuff, or is there, you know, is there some type of sovereign alliance that kind of defies borders and flags, and there is a cooperation for the benefit of humanity versus the benefit of individual countries that's at play? Like, where's the power struggle for this? How does that picture look?
I don't know. Is Henry Kissinger still alive, or I don't know. That would be a question for him, to be honest, because he's the one who structured all this. That's a little bit of meat and potatoes behind
So
that.
Alpha, the answer to your question, yes. There is a kind of international understanding through organizations, groups, corporations, think tanks, and various different leaders of this. In the context of the sovereign alliance, China, Russia, the United States, is there collaboration and coordination with this? I do believe that Trump and Xi Jinping and Putin have all come to an agreement on this level of technology. Number one, it won't be utilized in kinetic warfare anytime. And that they will have a progressive advancement of this technology they're introducing into the world over the next 20 years. But there was, I mean, obviously there was a group that has held this secret for a very, very long time. And I don't think it was the group that many people believe it was. And let me kind of give a little historical reference point for this. So we like to believe that it was the same deep state and globalists that have held on and kept this technology secret for all these years. But yet we fail to remember that it was Bill Clinton who ran on saying that he was going to release the UFO files. It was his chief of staff, John Podesta, who pushed for it originally in his first administration and his second administration that never got it. It was those same people, John Podesta, that joined Tom DeLonge in the Two Stars Academy with people like Hal Puthoff, to go out there and start releasing a lot of this information from the SAP programs and to get whistleblowers to come forth to try to push the disclosure of this information. When you start talking about a globalist or deep state figure like John Podesta, who's not in the know on this level of technology, that tends to show you that those same people didn't have this level of technology. And we even see this in some of the Epstein emails that, you know, Epstein was working primarily as an agent for the Rothschilds. One of him and Ghislaine Maxwell's primary projects was the uncovering of ancient technology from what was believed to be Atlantean sites, primarily why they're in the Caribbean was off the coast of Cuba. And that they had talked about other elite groups had obtained certain points of technology. They have acquired certain relics of technology, but their objective was to get it. And this is one of the main reasons why Epstein was also building a scientific infrastructure with scientists and so forth, for when they did find these technologies, they could easily reverse engineer it. But what that tells me is that they did not have access to this level of technology, and they were definitely not using it, and most of them were not in the know. And the ones that we do know, like Dick Cheney, that were deep state globalist neocons, Dick Cheney actually was the one that kept it from Clinton. He was the one that kept it from Poppy Bush for the longest time. And, you know,
Paul Wolfowitz.
well, yeah, but and here's something to the Dick Cheney, as evil as I think he is he kept that technology out of the hands of the globalists and the deep states. And I want people to think about that for a moment. As evil as that guy was, he ensured that that technology did not get released. But I do know that now that technology, from what I gather, at least for the U.S. defense contractors, is back in the hands of the U.S. military. There was some things that happened in 2018 with a man who got in position appointed by Donald Trump over the Department of Special Access Programs at the Pentagon. And this is what, in an interview, Donald Trump, I think it was with Logan Paul, Donald Trump says, I have access and I've been read in. And this is what he's talking about. This person is currently in his administration as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and that's General Dan Raisin Kane, who oversaw all special access programs in the Department of Defense and the Pentagon and throughout the intelligence agencies and controlled all the funding requirements for that. This is where Trump would have got access to this and then most likely taking back over access to these projects. Because you got to remember, the whole Q thing came about because of the selling off of SAP programs, special access programs and unacknowledged special access programs that our military had uncovered. And so the control and containment of those secrets was paramount in the first Trump administration, and they successfully obtained that control and containment in and around 2018, 2019.
I'm more of a pessimist. I know that Josh thinks, in an optimistic way, but I don't think that I I don't think it's all going to be like roses and cake and ice cream in the next few years. I think that we're going to have a really bad time before it gets better. And unfortunately, I'm not the only one that thinks that, and I don't want to say it, but that's where we are, and I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
And it's one of the
And they're
reasons
going to use a lot of this. They're going to use a lot of
And I
this
don't disagree with that,
technology.
game. I don't disagree with that.
They well, let
Chaos
me
will
tell you
ensue
why.
for a new optimized state.
Well, let me tell you why. That they, the China, Russia, and Trump narrative. We don't. You got to take, a person like Xi Jinping with a grain of salt. Putin, I would trust a little bit more than China, but we have to understand that China has been utilizing a lot of this tech against us, and so we know about it, and that goes into the speech. Okay, let me kind of transition into that. We had military operations just weeks ago in Venezuela, and so the reason why the speech was being pushed out into the forefront in different channels is because they were kind of seeing what would fit and what wouldn't. And this speech that was being floated around, that Laura Trump and others have been talking about, has really was originally it was originally about the Venezuela operation. Okay, folks, that's what the speech was truly actually meant for. That was the purpose. And through that information about that operation in Venezuela, we were going to learn about some of the exotic tech. We weren't going to learn exactly what it does, but it was going to be key words, just like seeding words, just like Josh said. It was going to be key words in there to highlight that we have tech that we've never used before, but now we're using it. And it was kind of like and I'm just and I know that this is probably, I'm just going to use different words that way I'm not cussing, but uh f around and find out sort of speech, the typical Trump, the Trump-esque sort of speech. That's the way the um that's how it was going to be presented. And so I talked to another journalist friend. He's in the audience, and he'll probably laugh to himself about this, but I sent him a DM this morning, and he sent me back a little suggestion, and it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I believe that the speech was probably pushed back for the next military operation. Hint, hint. And and this is from his analysis, and I think it's brilliant. I think that maybe they pushed back the speech because of this tech is going to be used in Iran, and then around, so the time frame is 2 weeks to 3 weeks, possibly a little bit sooner, after the operations end in Iran. So now you guys got a time frame of when this speech is going to be delivered. It's not, I'm not talking about the aliens and all of that. Maybe there is a speech for that. Maybe there is. I'm not saying that there isn't, but that's not my lane. I don't know nothing about that. All I know is about this speech about military exotic tech and F around and find out sort of a language towards our enemies. That's what the speech was originally about. And the time frame would be March through April, specifically around Resurrection Sunday. So there you go, Alpha. That is the breaking news that I revealed tonight.
That's exciting. Now, are we talking about like a continuation, kind of like the discombobulator kind of tech that he was talking about with Venezuela?
The bubble tech, baby, the bubble tech that I've been highlighting for since 2023, that most of you people down in the audience was ridiculing me about and laughing and calling me a crazy ass. But it is there, the bubble tech and the Havana syndrome. Catherine, if you guys want a more professional journalist that is way above me, if you don't take what I say with a grain of salt, that's great, honestly. Go listen to Catherine. Go listen to her reports about the Havana syndrome. There's going to be other that I know of. There's going to be other journalists. I can't really say who, because you can't get ahead of a story like that, and you just can't. Professionally, you can't either. Trust me, they'll blackball you. But there's other journalists that's going to be working on the mind control, the free will, and the Havana type technology that we have now and that we've been using. Um, and unfortunately, our own government has been using it against its own people. So this crimes against humanity, folks, isn't about sex trafficking. It's not about the murders. It's about this technology that's been used on the world. And Guantanamo is a good KPI. Bright lights in Bucharest is a great KPI. That they used a lot of this technology on unsuspecting victims and prisoners. They've used this on prisoners of war, and they've tested. It's just basically collecting data to test it, and they test it on people, and they've used it in Venezuela, and that's basically why you saw the Cuban military being coming home in boxes rather than caskets. So there
So
you have it.
March to April.
Yeah, around there. I would say closer to Resurrection Sunday than any other date.
All right. Well, folks, remember.
And for reference, I don't know, Game, if you've checked my feed. I actually did a response to the Dark Journalist today on Alex Jones on my feed, explaining the technology that was used in Venezuela. And then this comes from good source material. I can talk with you off channel on that. But I don't know.
Microwaves.
Well, some of it's microwave, but yeah, it's so if people remember the first Gulf War, one of the reasons why all the Iraqis just kind of gave up and stopped fighting is because we use voice to skull technology, and we basically were putting into their heads the voice of Allah, which telling them to disarm and put their arms down, of which many did, and it became so overwhelming that they all just gave up. That technology's been around for a while. What basically happened in Venezuela was directed energy subsonic acoustic waves that utilize that same mechanism of voice to skull technology, except think about it as loud as an amphitheater speaker in the center of their head. And it overloads their circuits. They shit themselves. They start bleeding from the nose. They vomit, and they're completely discombobulated. And at the same time, Delta Force is aiming a gun at them, killing them. That's a
And
lot
one
of this
more,
technology.
that is, and what Josh just said is pretty damn accurate. I'm telling you, I don't normally agree with him all the time, but no, I'm kidding, Josh. But
Well, this comes from a
here's
very legitimate
yeah, I know.
source.
You're explaining
So,
it. You're explaining it accurately. I'm pleasantly I'm not shocked, but
and here's another caveat for people.
well, I
There
was
was
about to give a caveat.
there's four
The
Black Hawk helicopters or black helicopters that were used, and if you look at their quadrant angle approach on the military base, that's because they were doing these beamforming energy weapons directed at the compound. So just keep that
well,
in mind.
there's a little bit more to it. And I'll be cryptic about this because I don't want to go to jail, but what I am saying, you guys can kind of pick it up on. They slow down time. It's wild. It's wild.
Essentially,
Freaking
what you
wild.
guys are describing is my worst nightmare with the next wife. Is essentially what you guys are describing here. Because time does slow down, and it does feel like the center of my brain's going to explode. Um, I want to remind everybody, you got a lot of brilliant people on this panel right now. This conversation has been focused around Game Tap, and Josh came here, and as always, we call him the human encyclopedia, and you saw why we call him that. So make sure you're following these two gentlemen. On top of that, Josh has his website, redpills.tv. I have mine, the AlphaWarrior.tv. Me and Josh do a lot of collaborations on Rumble and YouTube and these different platforms of stuff that we do offline. Like I said, these Alpha Warrior Show coming to X Spaces are going to be something that I'm going to be. Go ahead, Kim.
I just have subscriptions. That's all I have. I don't have a, I
Well,
don't have a studio or
yet.
Alpha.
Yet.
Yes.
Here's what I'll tell the people, and I know Josh will agree with me on this. It's people like Game Tech and others that give guidance and information to people like myself and Josh behind the scenes that allow us to put a picture together with some of the research and the assessments and analysis that we do. And when you guys do go and watch the shows that me and Josh do, and you see the consistent accuracy that we're hitting, it's because there are good people that will rename faceless, they will rename nameless, because they're not in this for notoriety, they're not in this for personal gain. They're in here because they see a mission, and they use people like myself and others to bring that to you. And one of my goals, and one of the reasons I'm coming back to X Spaces, which is just going to be a supplement. My primary home is going to be podcasting, but I will be doing these once a week, is to make sure that you guys are being armed with information that you can use to help, save our nation, save humanity as a whole. What we're going to do right now, because I know we've gone way overboard on the time that Game Tech allowed for us. We're going to go through about. Can you do about 15 minutes, Game, or am I asking too much there?
I got about 5 minutes, and I got to jump, but I know Game can probably stay about 10.
Oh, I can stay as long as you want, Alpha.
All right, right on. Then we'll take the first 5 minutes if somebody wants to ask a question specific to Josh, and then after that we'll go another 15 minutes with some questions that are aimed at Game Tech. So this is what I will say, because the way you start something is the way you set precedents, and everybody up here is mostly looks like a friend. So when you come up here, just be very conscious of the time. We have a limited time window here, so fire your question off really fast. If you have a statement and not a question, then kind of wait till we're done questioning these fellows, and I'll bring you guys up and we can make some statements that you guys want to share with the crowd. But again, just be very conscious of the time that you have to present these gentlemen with a question. And with that, I will turn it over to Carmen to be in control of who asks questions in what order. So thank you, Carmen.
Thanks, Alpha. Moneypenny.
Hi, darling, and thank you, Alpha. Nice to see you. So many lovely people here. It's past my bedtime. I'm in England, and I've waited up till 5:26 in the morning, so somebody's going to tell me off by dogs because I won't be feeding them. Joshua is fascinating. I know Game. He's trouble. He is just trouble. I am all about connecting UFOs with, unfortunately, the military, the technology behind it, the science. And I really did want to make a bit more of a statement than a quick question. But I will ask a quick question if you'd prefer me to do that, because I'm not a UFO sort of like alien person. I'm very skeptical about it, but I do investigate. And recently, we've come across the biggest connection and the most important connection, which is that between nuclear and atomic energy, which goes into weapons, it goes into Lockheed Martin, it goes into plasma orbs, and it also goes into the history of when we first saw UFOs and we first had psychological warfare. From 1942, from 1950, post-war, Nazi scientist stuff, NASA, all that. The government at the moment, we are talking about potentially having an announcement coming out about what we call exotic technology. The government won't mention one word, and I think I know why. That word is plasma, and that is because plasma room temperature fusion was only acknowledged by the DOE and DARPA 10 days ago in a document that they put out. And we know that an MIT plasma fusion scientist was shot, and within 48 hours of that, the Trump media group bought TAE, which is the plasma fusion company. And all of these are why we see UFOs over nuclear bases, because most UFOs, in fact, 90%, according to the British Condign report from the Royal Air Force, are actually plasma phenomenon that are morphological and able to change shape and move at Mach 8 speeds and flash different coloured lights and look, and to all intents and purposes, they could look like a silver flying saucer because they have particles in them that could be metallic. I have to ask Josh, why do the government not acknowledge plasma and plasma phenomena? Because they call them drones and close airports down because of them. Why won't they talk about it?
So here is the best answer that I can possibly give you. Because once you start understanding what plasma is and how it operates, gravity becomes elementary. So the idea that if everybody's been in the UFO community for a long time, they've probably talked about various different types of gravitational drives, manipulating gravity, creating gravitational wells, which takes immense amounts of energy in order to do, of which we can't produce right now. When they figured out how gravity worked back in the 60s and the 70s, basically what they realized was that these craft don't create gravitational fields. They simply disrupt the gravitational field around it. And they do that through various different asymmetric disruptions. One of them is a gradient amplifier. And so think about it as vacuum pressure is what creates gravity. And so when you have a field of gravity, when you have a gradient amplifier, you can basically change the dynamics of that vacuum field, which then produce a ancillary force that can produce propulsion. Well, that gradient amplifier is plasma. So plasma is actually the key to unlocking gravity. And if this civilization had
But
that
there's the
30, 40
difference,
years
Joshua.
ago,
That's the bit. You see, most people use that word that you used, craft. Well, these plasma phenomena are self-gravitational ionized gases with a natural double metallic membrane on them. They are natural. They are like ball lightning. It is just the plasma that you're talking about is more of a plasma propulsion or a plasma sheath, which is being put around a clever Lockheed Martin toy thing. It's a mechanical process, whereas the plasma orbs that I'm talking about, the proper UFOs as I call them, they are naturally gravitational. They fly around under their own propulsion, which is natural ionized gas and electromagnetics. It doesn't have any moving bits in it.
so yeah, your context would be more of like the Booga orbs and stuff like that. And I don't disagree with you. Now, from what I gather with a lot of that technology is that plasma itself is not only a gradient amplifier, well, actually, it still is a gradient amplifier, but can also express consciousness, as in there's quantum realm dynamics that are going on to where consciousness can directly integrate into it. So you'll have this steel ball that is producing a plasma, but how is it flying? Well, that goes back to the part I was talking about with the connection directly to consciousness. That consciousness becomes the computer system that drives it and performs the high level calculations necessary for that. So, um, it's
Let me
it's
let me
a
ask you.
way
Let me
more
ask you
time than I
this.
have to explain. But money, if you wanna message me, we can talk about it and discuss, and I can give you more information on it.
Lovely, thank you.
So, Josh, let me ask you one quick question to kind of close that out, and I'll let you give everybody some info where to find you. Listen, I'm definitely not the smartest guy in the room, which is great because that means I get to learn a lot tonight. With that understanding, is what I'm hearing here when you guys are talking these consciousness and these plasma things. I'm going back to Independence Day, all right, with Will Smith and those guys, and they got to take down the mothership because when they take down the mothership, all the little baby shits fall down. Am I understanding this sophisticated conversation the correct way?
Well, natural plasma produces natural little plasma babies all the time. You see a plasma orb and it will spin off 6 or 7 of them quite easily, even when a Hellfire missile is thrown at them.
I mean,
Yeah, maybe I didn't
could
understand the question, Alpha. What was the question?
have just, I mean, Money Penny could have just said yes, and that would have been that would have been
Sorry.
good enough. Josh, do me a solid, brother. Let everybody know where they can find you, and if you got anything coming up, man, let them know.
You can find me redpills.tv or just follow me here on X. Got a good show coming up this next week, Thursday, tomorrow, with Alpha Warrior, Overwatch, and The Guardian. Should be a really good show. We'll probably incorporate some of these topics into it. But also, Penny, I just wanted to touch on that with those orbs. One of the things that they discovered with a lot of these ancient orbs and the Boogosphere, this is not extraterrestrial. This is from Earth. This is very, very old and parts of what I would consider like the Earth defense system.
Yeah,
But
it's completely different,
right, but when
because
you
the
look
plasma
at it
I'm talking
with
about, you're right, is consciousness. The plasma, the sentient,
right,
intelligent plasma, space plasma that NASA studied.
but but
This is what I'm
but
talking
they
about. It's
use something
natural.
known as quantum etched technology. And what I mean by that is at the quantum layer, you basically have layer over layer of various different component levels that unless you can go down to that level, the quantum level, you can't even detect it. So there is component tree involved in them, but it's what we call quantum etched technology. And we can talk about that off. And so
Yeah, I
I
don't
got to
want to
go,
take up too
guys.
much time. I could be here forever.
No,
There's so many
appreciate you
hands
guys.
up.
Thanks for having me, and we'll talk soon. Much love. Take care.
Always, brother. Real quick, we're gonna go through these hands. I want to make sure I remind everybody: be very conscious of your time. In addition to the hands that are already up, there's a line of people that have been here the entire show, waiting to be brought up, and I want to make sure that we give these people who could have left and they didn't and stayed patient a chance to come up here and ask their questions as well. So I see hands up from Silent, John, Cassandra, and Rilla. If
So
anybody else
Rilla
has
was
their,
first.
all right. So go ahead and I'll turn it over to you again, Carmen.
Thanks. Rilla, go ahead.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks, Alpha. Just question for game. I'll have 2 questions and I'll drop down and listen so Alpha can get the room filled up. But game, 2 things. So in the ocean, have we been looking like
And
everybody looks in the sky?
first, nice to meet you. I haven't spoken with you before, but you look kind of cool, so I wanted to.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, I follow you. I actually follow you before even this room. So yeah, I follow everybody, all different kind of walks of life. I find everything interesting. So this great topic. Thanks, Alpha, for doing this. But yeah, the question about what's in the ocean, and then the second thing is it safe for a whistleblower in the current times right now to come forward in this environment to bring whatever evidence? So the ocean is, I always find that mysterious, like the Atlantis down there. I'll let you talk. Thanks.
Yes, we have a lot of locations, and I'll give you kind of what I. This is just my opinion on the locations. Okay, there's something about water that that's where a lot of these sightings happen, and it's not necessarily the ocean. It's creek beds, it's rivers, it's anywhere. You remember the map that I talked to you about with the Vatican of the locations. The majority of those little dots are in some sort of or near, like very very near streams, rivers, creek beds, lakes, oceans. It's not just the ocean. It's not just the ocean at all. But with the second question, how dangerous is it? Oh my goodness gracious. That's for another day. And you guys are going to see the level of tyranny that happens with. I'm gonna send Alpha a DM from a huge journalist that they sent to me, and I'm gonna give him permission to read it off without giving who it is, and then you're gonna understand the danger of people who have been talking about this. He basically told me, now's not the time. Shut your mouth for a little bit. And so, I've had it directed towards me a little bit too. And I don't want to get into it personally. This is not why I'm here. I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about the story. But yeah, there is definitely a fear of people within the government that is targeting individuals who are talking right now. And so I'm going to provide the proof of that to Alpha. That way he vets it. That way he understands what I'm saying is true, and that way he can verify it for his audience, knowing that what I'm saying is completely accurate. Give me a moment, Alpha, and then we'll go to the next question. If they can kind of give me maybe 30 to 45 seconds, I'll have that DM to you.
Absolutely. So while we take this quick little intermission and give Game Tech some time, do us a solid. The content is free. All you got to do is go down there and share it. The space is recorded so people can come back and listen to the replay. Also, if you want to ask a question and it's directed towards Game Tech, or it's directed towards Josh, or maybe even you want to give me a shot at giving you some information, drop it down in that purple pill. And I'll make sure that I tell these guys to take a look at it over the next few days. Both these guys are pretty good at getting back to people. So if it's something that you want to ask, you just don't want to come up and be on the panel, that's there. The other thing I want to do, I should have did this earlier. When you come up and ask a question, just understand that this is a recorded space, and this space is probably going to end up on a podcast out there. So when you come up, you are completely acknowledging that your voice and your likeness and your statements will be used in audio material and content that go with other podcasts. So just understand that there's no expectation to privacy when you come up and ask a question, participate in this conversation. And hopefully about game a little bit of time. Not enough time, so I'll keep going.
Perfect. No.
Right, there we go.
Go check your DM. Read the very first one, or read the second one first, and then read the first one. Kind of paraphrase it though, if you could. Paraphrase it, that way there's no keywords or anything. So paraphrase the both comments, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it once through just to make sure that I do paraphrase it correctly, and then I'll go from there. So you guys go ahead and ask one more question. Then after that question, I'll come back and read these to make sure that I do it in the correct way.
All right. Go to Dr. James.
Oh wow! Hey Carmen, I thought I was like fourth or fifth in order, and I was like starting to grind some coffee beans. Heck, good grief! And honestly, I really Alpha. Yeah, I was sort of throwing it up there to be in the later group. I don't have too many questions for these guys really right yet. I want to do a little bit of digging on, and I'd be interested in knowing some of the sources on some of that stuff. As scientist that has worked on many of the things that have been discussed so far on this call, um, I I can speak to quite a bit of it, but the direction of this space isn't really tech that way, right? So it wouldn't. I don't really want to take up a whole bunch of your time with it, and I think the content of the space is really great. I think the direction you're taking it is fascinating. The timing is impeccable, And yeah, I agree that we're going to see some and hear some things very soon. And to many of us, also that I see in this space, that's an indicator of big things coming immediately thereafter. So, yeah, I'll land it here. Alpha, thanks again, and your show earlier with the Colonel was excellent. If you all haven't seen it yet, go look it up and watch that show. You guys are great. Thank you again. Thank you, Carmen. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Dr.
Speak,
James.
And yeah, I'd be
speaking of
glad to
the
address anything on any of the tech at any point, but I'm gonna sit back and finish making this coffee so wifey doesn't, get like real mad at me in the morning. So all right, thanks.
So the timing is impeccable because I'm always ahead of the game on stuff. That's my mix. That's my shtick, Like with alpha and politics, my shtick is getting ahead of the media on it's and there's a reason. There's a legitimate reason for that. It's to mentally prep a lot of you guys for the psyop that we're under. Um, we're under, whether you guys recognize this or not, we're under a heavy dose of psychological operation right now, and we have been heavily since February of 2023. That's when the operation was just on steroids at that time. So
Yeah, and what I'll add to that is game tech is always consistently not just accurate but ahead of the game. Yeah, Nadia Marcinko, or some people know Nadia Marcinkova. That was information from several months ago, and interesting how that was, correct. Like I said, a very long time ago. Kind of summarize the message game put out there, and I will just summarize it just to keep it safe. Absolutely, people are concerned. And absolutely the level of importance that surrounds this is something that needs to be respected. So I completely sign off on the statement that Game said, and I don't need to say any more than that. If you want to, unless you want to add something to that, Game. If not, we'll move on to the next question.
no, I just it. I'm a softie. I'm more of a passive guy. I'm not, I act all tough and I'm a smart ass when I go into rooms, but that's just my media personality. Do you understand? There's the game, the real personality, and then there's the media personality. And I do things on purpose just to get attention. I'll ruffle Alpha's feathers just to get a little attention because I know what I'm doing when it comes to media. But he knows I love him. He knows that I don't I respect our friendship, regardless of our disagreements. But yes, there is a lot of journalists that have taken the ropes on talking about stuff that we're not supposed to talk about, talking about stuff that is very important to humanity, not to ourselves, but to humanity. And I've seen and been blessed with the networking and with the professional people that I've worked with in the past. I've been blessed. I'm no one special, guys. I'm literally just like you. I'm a retarded uh, poor guy that has been blessed with the right people seeing the talents that I do have when it comes to communication and media. So that's why I've gotten the story. It's because of my talent and my persistent bugging. That's another thing. I am very persistent. I will not give up on a source. If I have to call you like 20 different times to butter you up and to rub elbows and to feed you egg sandwiches and I'll do whatever I need to do to get a really good story. I'll freaking do it. So, but yeah, just to finish, a lot of people have been harmed by speaking, and it's a very serious nature. And I get warned sometimes, like, hey, not right now, maybe later. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating to go through that, and it's frustrating to not be able to completely just dish everything at a certain time that I think is important. But again, I have to understand my role. I have to understand my lane. And I have to understand that people tell me things because they trust that I won't go outside the box of the rules of media and the rules of you know, working against others, I guess, so to speak. But what do we got next, Alpha?
Go ahead, Carmen.
Silent.
Huh?
It's on you.
Oh, did I have my hand up over there?
You did.
Oh, shit. What's up, gang?
I'm
Hey.
right now listening to two country bumpkin accents that I absolutely adore. That's what's up.
All right, brother. Well, hey, man. Hey, I I appreciate your input, man. I mean, god dang, I've been learning a lot tonight. But I have one question. And this has been just on my mind, and I have not been able to figure it out. Maybe you can help me out with it. Do you remember, because since we're talking about the UFOs and disclosures and game tech, right? When you remember the video when Nancy Pelosi came out and said, "It's us, the reptilians"?
Yes,
Remember
I
that?
remember. Yes.
Okay, I'm having a real hard time understanding exactly what that meant. I have my thoughts, but I'm curious about what you might think about that. That's my question.
This is, of course, anything that I say is opinion because I don't have the ins and outs of that. But and it's going to sound like I'm joking around, but I'm actually kind of serious. She probably just got done drinking a bottle of wine and was recollecting a conversation that she had probably that morning or previous that week, and she just started spitting up the alcohol was talking, most likely, to be honest.
Okay, that's all I had. I'm gonna shut up.
It's hilarious. Oh my gosh, silent.
John.
Thank you. Game, good to see you, buddy. I'll be brief with this. I know
real quick, John, before you go, just because that was an interesting statement that Nancy Pelosi played. So I went and grabbed it for everybody. It's only it's about 20 seconds. And just so for those that are not familiar with it and want to hear it, let me hit play and then we'll go right back to you, John.
They didn't know what they were talking about. We know we're different from the presidential. We're very discreet, reptilian, cold-blooded. These are the races we have to win. Others are winning the whole country. And
so definitely sounds like there might be a little grandpa's old cough medicine on board. Go ahead, John.
See, I analyze things perfectly, man. I don't mince words.
Yeah, even the co-host from PBS was kind of looking at her like, I can't believe you said that on my show. Go ahead, John.
So seriously, I don't think that saying reptilian is Freudian slip at all. I'm just throwing it out there. What a wow! What a Gila monster that one. She is a trip. Yeah, I gotta pray for her. Anywho, so game. I know I brought this up before, and I don't know that until I'm gonna start hearing about it more from others, or at least getting the thought process kind of there as a whole, however long that takes. I don't think I'm going to stop asking, but anyways, I want to know your take on something. So the way I look at it is, you guys were talking about it before about other entities, and they walk amongst us. So thinking from that point of view, the way I see it is just a hidden knowledge, an advanced knowledge set that evil people have been hiding. And that's maybe oversimplifying it, but we'll just leave it at that. So my question for you is this. There are things that we know and things that we don't know. And one of the things that we do know is that there's advanced intelligence even in government. And so with that being said, do you really, based on the information that you've obtained, do you truly believe that there are other types of things that walk among us that look like humans, or are they humans that have knowledge sets above and beyond because we've been suppressed in our knowledge?
I don't know if it's possession. I don't know if that's what they mean, like, or if it's physical in nature within themselves. I'm not quite certain, but from what I've gathered is that they're everywhere around the world. They're world leaders. They're uh, your local mayors, your police officers, your judges, anything that has to do with like government. They've infiltrated government and education, and so that's kind of like, but that's again, you have to take that sort of thing with a grain of salt because that hasn't really been vetted. That's just the rumor mill in DC and amongst all those politicians. They try to sit there and try to. It's a joke. It's like an inside joke that they try to scan them out. But I don't know. That's to be figured out later, I guess.
Right on. Thank you.
Thank you, John. John. Cassandra.
I'm laughing right now because I'm like listening to that. I've never heard that clip before. And I just posted on my Instagram with a little, they killed Kenny from South Park saying, I told you so. There she is. She just admitted she's a fucking reptilian. All right, here's my question. Josh left, but I will absolutely take Alpha's advice and put it in the purple pill. So I think that this is really interesting. So in the last 4 months, I invested in a company. It's called Vast Space. And based on what Josh had said, this was my question to him and Game Tech, if you have any insights. He's just like, anti-gravity exploration is not a thing. There's no such thing. And specifically, that is what VAST is. And so they're taking, basically these commercial space stations. They've already, trialed it, and they're launching it to create, zero gravity products. So to me, I see like these vertical integrations going into our society left and right in coherence with AI of aerospace firms, including VAST. Now, here's the background with VAST is it's owned and founded by Jed McCabe. So if you understand who he is, he founded Ripple, XRP, and XLM. So some people will play around with quantum financial system. Basically, we know we're in the quantum age. Okay, well, we always have been. But I just find it interesting that when you look at the ships floating to the top, based on the digital asset world, KYC world, Jed McCabe, now who's in the most progressive tech space, so I think it's just interesting to see the leaders. They're on top of the stage right now in the transition of power and who holds that information. We know they got shit, right? So I was going to ask Josh, like, well, if it's not anti-gravity technology exploration, how would you rephrase that so I can better understand what he meant by that?
Yeah, I have nothing there. I wasn't really I'm not in tune with that sort of topic.
Sounds good. I'll put it in the purple pill. But nonetheless, it's interesting to see the transition of power and where, unlike the Epstein file, people are resigning. These individuals, whether they're protected or not, they're taking the new frontier forward. And for me, I do a lot of intuitive work and I speak to a lot of plasma. And I am encouraged and I am hopeful. And it's about damn time that they come out with this shit because we deserve the truth, because most of us already know it. And, we'll see where the days go. But Josh has specifically said by summer, he thinks Trump is whether he's trying to get ahead of it or that's when the declaration will come, that is when Trump will be coming out to start to expose all of this information. So I just want to drop that in there as well. All right. Thanks, guys. Love you all. Stay strong. Keep your head up. And we've already won. Now you just got to keep winning in action, people. Action. Over to you, Alpha and Miss Carmen.
Thank you, Cassandra. Dee, how are you?
Hey, if you guys mean me, Doomer, thanks for letting me come up and speak. Alpha and Carmen, Game, you know I'm a huge fan of yours. I'd like.
I'm a huge fan of Doomers.
Thank you, man.
And just to let you guys know, you know, Doomer is a really good friend in the background. He's not just a speaker; he's a good friend of mine.
Thank you, man. And likewise, Alpha, I love the questions you were asking. Game, there's a lot I disagree with about what Josh said. I think some of the points were absolutely true and important. I want to briefly make a few statements, and then I want to ask you and Game a question. The two questions I loved the most that you asked Game were, what the fuck is the power structure here? What is the battle over? My answer to you is betrayal. That fundamentally, disclosure, fundamentally is about betrayal. Everything from what we've been told about God, genetics, science, our government, religions, betrayal is at the heart of everything, including why now, which is the second question you asked.
Well, can I expand on that? Just
yeah,
and
go ahead.
Really quick.
Yeah, no, this is your space, man.
What he said is absolutely outstanding and something that you truly guys. This is a. I'm glad that Alpha is bringing people up with these type of questions, because sometimes people will hit home on really important things, and so like you have to understand that there are how many different types of churches in the United States? How many?
Too many. Thousands.
Thousands. There's over 1,100. To be exact, there's over 1,100 different doctrinal teachings, meaning different ways of teaching about the Bible and different ways of teaching about Jesus Christ. Now, from my understanding about what Jesus said is that there's only one understanding, not thousands of different ways, but there's only one understanding, and there's only one way to basically get into heaven, and that's through His name. But there's a lot of mysteries around God that we'll never understand. We're not meant to understand them. So there is a spiritual betrayal, I guess. What I would use a different word, but that's a good word. There is a spiritual battle to keep a lot of this from us, so that way we aren't enlightened. That way we don't become closer to God, because honestly, from my perspective on these things, is that I truly believe this with all my heart. You don't have to. That's not what I'm not trying to persuade you, but I truly believe that all governments, all not and I'm a patriot. I serve this country. Um, but all governments are here to separate you from God. And that's what I truly believe. And Satan uses governments as a tool to do that, and to restrict freedom, to restrict um, God's love, true love, and to limit our capabilities. The biggest thing is to limit our capabilities of loving other people and loving individuals and taking care of the poor, taking care of the people that are addicts out in the street, and not sit there and lash out against them, because us lashing out against evil is just going to create evil within ourselves. So we have to understand that we need to change our roles in society. We need to change our hearts in society. We need to start looking at individuals as being God's children rather than being a thorn in the system. And I'm going to say something very controversial, but that's what I do. Okay. And it's to wake you guys up. Jeffrey Epstein, Jesus Christ died for him. Do you understand that? So if he can die for him, he definitely died for us. And if Jeffrey Epstein can get into heaven with repentance, of course, it's probably too late. but my whole point is that if we start treating society as God's children the way that God wants us to be treating everybody, then we do get rid of the evil within our own communities, within our own society, and within our own nation. And that's what we need to start focusing on, is grace and mercy rather than pitchforks and rush get them, that sort of attitude. We need to start changing our attitudes, guys. Truly.
Well,
Go ahead, Doomer.
yeah, and look, I came up here so I could push you into saying the crazy things, right? So that I don't have to, game. So, Alpha, if you can remember, what was that thing that you said about Satan? Something sounds an awful lot like Satan, deceives you. They control the heroes. Can you help me out here? They control the heroes.
Yeah, it's it's the old saying that instead of trying to conquer people, just give them a hero and be in control of their hero.
Yeah, and so for the non-religious or for the atheist or the agnostic, the great ontological shock, the betrayal that they will experience, not through disclosure from the government, because I disagree with Game in just using the word. If I could, I would punish every single ufologist who continues using that word. We're getting at the most NHI confirmation from the government. We're not going to get disclosure. It's going to come from us dirty, unwashed peasants and X spaces. After the government breaks the glass and says, "Hey, we're not alone," and then walks away, spikes the mic, it's people are going to rush in to us crazy ufologists, and we're going to be delivering disclosure. That's my opinion. But for the non-religious, disclosure, as in the big apocalypse is Greek for disclosure, by the way, should give you a hint what it's about, is going to be realizing that humanity does have a creator. And the big ontological shock for religious people is to discover that that direct creator was not God. And that those are going to be the two major things that cause people major ontological shock. And
wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, if you think you're going to get disclosure and not be shocked, then you're not talking about disclosure. So for the person who asked John, what do they mean by they walk among us? The third possibility is if they walk among us, obviously they look like us. They could either be some camouflage, some projection, some mirage, or they share our genetics. And the Rh negative bloodline is the proof, not of extraterrestrial origin necessarily, but the absolute unassailable proof, genetic proof, of non-human hybridization with the current human genome.
And Epstein is, I mean, you look into that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Rh blood.
Rh negative blood, yeah.
Discussions happening.
Rh negative blood comes from the primate genealogy, meaning those who have Rh negative blood did not evolve directly naturally from on this planet. Now, the extraterrestrial proof genetically, believe it or not, is the Y chromosome. The Y chromosome has no genetic ancestor, even though you have two constituent chimpanzee chromosomes that were fused together in the human genome. Now, if the Y chromosome didn't come from the human genome, but two chromosomes did, supported by mainstream science, that leaves only an extraterrestrial origin for the Y chromosome. And there's no other matching in the rest of the animal kingdom for more than 20 to 30% of the Y chromosome. So there was a hybridization of a male from another extraterrestrial species with an evolving hominid here with required genetic engineering, because all primates are 48 chromosomes and our progenitors, the creators, I wouldn't say they're good guys, had 46. And if you do 46 and 48, you get a mule and it can't reproduce. So you need a genetic binding, a genetic engineering, and a fusion. And the proof of that is on chromosome 2, the chromosome that's constituent of two chimpanzee chromosomes. So that's the answer to John's question. The answer to Cassandra's was something about space. What would you call it? They refer to it as gravitics and over unity. That's what most people refer to, and most people will say that there is a legitimate manipulation of gravity. I'm sure Dr. Joyce can respond to that. But there seems to be a lie back in 1870 from Maxwell's equations. 8 equations were dropped that later we found out would have helped you manipulate electrogravitics, electromagnetism, Another area where I disagree with Josh, electromagnetism is directly implied in the manipulation of gravity. And these simple arithmetic rearrangements of the equations is one of the reasons somebody had to come up with the bullshit called string theory. So I just wanted to say, like, there's some proof that a lot of us know. None of us can actually build
Hey,
UFOs.
string theory's not all bullshit.
No, it's
Come
not.
on.
It's not all bullshit. But my question to you, my question to Alpha, if you were the leader of the free world, or at least the president, and you could reveal the truth about everything, spiritual beings, good and bad, the ugly, catastrophic disclosure, but it would result in absolute, at least temporary collapse of the economic system. Let's say double digit millions in suicides just from ontological shock. And probably war just from other surrounding nations taking advantage of the chaos. Would you press that red button on the truth being released? And my question to you, Game Tech, is considering Grusch's core contention is that there's actually also among the government lying to everybody, the core contention is from the 40 witnesses that an extra governmental crime is actually being committed against the government. Tech and IP equivalent or actually much more valuable than if you took all of the nation's nukes and just hijacked them, being appropriated away from the government, and the government doesn't have the balls to assume rightful status and enforce the law. Considering that is what Grusch is saying under penalty of perjury, what makes you think that the big revelation is really going to be tech and not just some tepid acknowledgement that there's another intelligence here? I don't see true disclosure or even meaningful disclosure of tech other than, yeah, we have exotic shit, really being part of any confirmation. Those are my two questions, and thanks for letting me grandstand for a little bit.
I think, and I would just go back to the whole existence thing. Just read your Bible. That's my opinion on that. But second, on the David Grusch thing, the contentionness and whether or not we're going to get disclosure from the government, we're not. And I've always said that, and I've always been I've always had a solidified stance with that we're not going to get disclosure from the United States government. We're going to get disclosure from the scientists and from the UFO retrieval whistleblowers that have worked on these operations and these programs. So that's where the disclosure is coming from. It's just the tool that they need is permission from getting rid of these NDAs, and also permission to share their studies with these other scientists, so that way they can dish off all of their studies to continue it. So that's where I've come to understand where disclosure is coming from, not necessarily from the government. They're just using the government as a tool to get it done.
I mean, you're totally right. The whistleblowers need protection, right? Those who are in legal USAPs need to be able to speak, and they need whistleblower blower protections or immunity. But those in illegal programs are already breaking the law. So, obviously the government doesn't need permission from the illegal program people. My question to you is, if there is stolen tech or stolen IP, if there's a rogue, probably the originator of the deep state, why do you think the government is going to disclose, hey, by the way, we lost the keys to the UFOs? Martin and Lockheed are running around flying UFOs around our bases, and they can destroy us anytime that they want. That seems to be a disclosure that's too catastrophic for the government to afford, to me.
And you're right. You're absolutely right about the assessment, but the way that it's going to go about is the way that I suggest. And from the Lockheed situation, why not just wipe out? It's a battle of chess, and there's going to be a time and date where we're going to have to realize all of this. This isn't just natural. This isn't organic. This is pressed. This is systematic, and this is very coordinated. Everything that has happened since May 21st of 2023 has been coordinated with this disclosure effort. This isn't something that's just, let's do this, guys, and See if it works. No. This has been very meticulously coordinated by some of the smartest people in the world.
And here's what I'll say to answer your question, and it's a great question too, Doomer. It's a question that I've actually, I've pushed back against some of my closest friends, some in this space, some in the podcasting world, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard this or seen this post on social media. Well, if telling the truth collapses the whole system, then that means collapse the whole system. And I personally think that's a very emotional reaction. It's not a logical reaction. And the reason being is I think a lot of people have seen a lot of movies and read a lot of books and think that in the ashes of destruction and chaos, that good rises like a phoenix. And that's just not the way it happens in the real world. 2/3 of my life has been battling, the worst humans that exist on this earth, whether it was in a foreign country or here domestically. And what I can tell you is good people are good people by nature. They're just inherently, they're just good people. They're not going to do bad things. And in the world of chaos, the apocalypse, so to speak, good people aren't going to deprive other people of food. Good people aren't going to take others' food. They're not going to take other people's land. Good people aren't going to do bad things. Evil will. Evil, by the very nature of what it is designed to prosper in chaos. And so what ends up happening is in an apocalypse scenario, evil is what will take the initial dominance. And it's not until good people realize that if you try to play by the rules when the enemy is using unrestricted warfare, you're always going to lose. And then good people will finally realize that you're going to need those Jack Nicholsons, you need me on that wall, right? And then they'll start to do bad things. But that's something that has to evolve. And in that window of, evolving to that mind state, innocence and elderly are lost. And so if I was, the key holder to this information, that big red button was put in front of me, I wouldn't push it. I would do things that is a slow drip. That way, once enough percentage of the court of public opinion supports it, then we could move forward. That'd be my answer to that.
Alpha, I totally agree with you about your assessment of human nature and the balance of good and evil and the necessity for good people to realize they have to seize power if they don't want evil to win. However, there's one exception, and I'm confident actually you're going to change your mind. And that is, one, disclosure of evil is required for some good people to do that math. And number two, if the slow drip is a betrayal and they're just slowly walking off the plank because of an oncoming cataclysm, which is actually coercing the confirmation, you would realize everybody on this planet has a right to know the end date, and they have a right on their own terms to try to come up with a way to survive and to come up with a solution, except for the 20 or 30 nerds in the basements of the skunk works of Lockheed Martin. If 8 billion people have a ticking time bomb, they deserve to know now to decide how they're going to spend the rest of their end days, or maybe try to break away from this planet or survive. In that scenario, I think you would reconsider your decision.
Morally,
hence Elon Musk.
Morally, I would reconsider it, Doomer. Logically, I wouldn't. And it goes to the drowning person. They deserve to live, and they're going to fight with all their might to survive. Sometimes you got to punch them in the face and knock them out, or they're going to drown both of you. And like morally, I would agree with you, but in the essence of absolute survival, I wouldn't make the correct moral decision in that case.
I respect your honesty, man, and thank you.
Thank you. We have Panama Orange.
Yeah, thanks for having me up here. I'm going to try and keep this brief. I know it's running late here. I've spoken before about my reptilian experiences in my labs and whatnot. Game Tech Politics had me in the spaces a few times, or let me talk about it. I was a cop during Hurricane Katrina. And yeah, I've got proof of that. I've given proof to several shows, and they've checked it out. And I was part of a program that trained reptilians in crowd control for eventual use in crowd control. I found out later there was many other police and military who were taking the similar projects. But just to keep it condensed and get to the question of what's relevant, I'm currently 48. I know I sound younger, but the reptilian issue is a big issue, and really, aside enough people talk about that. One issue that's kind of not being talked about enough, many experiencers, including me, have seen in these MyLab programs and abductions, I mean, many, it's very common. Our own government has their own hybrid programs and their own biological experiments where they're making gray hybrids for themselves. They're making.
I actually believe that, Panama. I believe that there's the dark science, these labs that grow like humans with like pig feet, or pigs with like horse heads. They've been doing that for a long time, and that's a lot to do with the Epstein elite type occult people.
Yeah, well,
yeah, you're correct.
it's beyond even human-animal chimeras. They're using actual alien DNA, not just making. I know some people theorize that aliens are they're mixing animal DNA and making them look like aliens. No, they're using actual alien DNA, and they're creating all sorts of crazy mixes. But they're also doing crazy stem cell and genetic treatments on abductees. I mean, I had my color blindness cured after 40. I woke up one day and my color blindness was cured. I was too sensitive to light ever since, but that shouldn't be possible. There's no pill that we know of. You can't just hit your head and cure your color blindness. There's no, it's a hard thing to cure. So that was either a genetic or a stem cell treatment. I had another stem cell treatment they did on most of my major muscle groups to reduce pain sensitivity, which again, I'm not saying I'm some super soldier 20 and back time traveler. I've never been to Mars. I don't have any abductions that I remember outside the atmosphere. I believe, I'm not a flat earther. I'm just saying, I'm not saying I'm a super soldier, but they have tested things on me, to see if it'll work. And I know at some of these procedures they've done, there were human military personnel who were also getting these upgrades. So, and that was like 5 or 6 years ago. So I know we have at least some special forces walking around with the pain sensitivity of Tony Montana. Like literally, they feel less pain. They could go through a windshield after a helicopter crashes and get up like an action movie and just keep fighting. Or they have enhanced night vision. I know these techs exist, but also as far getting back to the hybrid point, they have a hybrid program where they're mixing reptilian and gray and human, and that's where these pale crawler sightings and encounters happening all over the country the last 10, 15 years, where they're breaking into people's houses, they're stealing livestock, leaving physical evidence. There's so many witnesses to these pale crawler beings, but these are a mix of reptilian and gray and human. The first version of these was actually the chupacabra. The chupacabra was a mix of reptilian and gray and human, and then they played with the cocktail mix a bit, and now they're producing these crawlers because they want to create something that can fight anything. It could fight humans, it could fight reptilians, it could fight grays, but just getting to the point, the targeted laser question here, and that is, why aren't we seeing more whistleblowers talk about these biological experiments in terms of our own hybrid programs and our own crazy things they're doing? Because again, beyond bias and beyond false memories, my color blindness was cured, and that's something regular technology cannot do. But I know we're running low on time, but just trying to focus. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, Panama. The way that I've actually looked into that a long time ago. I don't remember where, or when, but it was within that channel. I can't remember exactly the area, but it's called spatial imagery, and they can use technology to limit or expand your spatial imagery, which basically is a block or an addition to memory. So they can block memories, kind of like erasing memories, just like the trend that just came out 2 days ago about the trumpet flower and Epstein, of how they can take away someone's free will, control them at will or with keywords. And this is a very real thing. This isn't something that I'm making up. It was literally trending 2 days ago, but I've been highlighting this for a very long time. I just never had the words to color a picture of what I've come to understand. I don't understand a lot of this lingo and a lot of these big scientific words and stuff. I'm just not educated in that pinpoint area. So, but yes, they use technology. Our enemies, these occultists, these devil worshippers, have been using technology against people all around the world, utilizing a control mechanism and a control mechanism to block memories, to basically erase your memory, or to add synthetic memories to your consciousness. And so that I think, I don't know the answer to your question, but if I had to guess, that would be the tool necessary to use to limit whistleblowers from coming out, because you have to understand, dramatic pause, you have to understand that these whistleblowers have handlers. They have people in the government watching them at all times. And proof of that, look at the Bob Lazar story. Look at how the government was spying on him, how they knew about his wife cheating on him before he even knew it. And then not only that, but they tried to basically erase his history. They erased his academic record at MIT. They erased a lot of public information about him in particular, and he wasn't even aware of it, that was going on at that time. He wasn't aware that they were cleaning up all of his academic records and just deleting them basically. But what they didn't do is they didn't do a very good job, and you'll find that handlers make mistakes all the time, and it's because they just get delegated, and if you're delegated a role and you get an idiot that you delegated it to, they make mistakes. And so some of the mistakes with Bob Lazar was that they didn't erase his name out of the student directory. And not only that, but they didn't clean his house and sweep his house with any evidence of him working at Area 51. He still has his ID card. And not only that, but they didn't block out a lot of his memory. They didn't use technology against him to to stop him from blowing the whistle on this stuff. And not only that, but it was kind of too late because he already did it. But for those whistleblowers that do come out, uh, they've been watched. They know who these people talk to, and then they target them and they cause a lot of chaos in their lives to discredit those type of individuals. And that's why a lot of people were trying to discredit Bob Lazar. But everything that Bob Lazar has talked about with Element 115, with a lot of the ins and outs of the retrieval program, he was the whistleblower. It wasn't David Grusch. It was Bob Lazar talking about the UFO retrieval program first. We wouldn't have the momentum that we have today without Bob Lazar. So yes, there are whistleblowers that want to talk, but they use technology and they use sinister ways to shut them up, including murder.
Yeah, believe me, I've had things happen to me, break-ins, the SUVs, all sorts of. I'm not even a paranoid person. I currently have a government job. I'm pretty functional. I'm not going to get enough sleep for tomorrow. I got to work in the morning, but the pressure.
Well, we do have to move on, Panama, but I do want to say this. I'm glad that you brought that up, because and because it is true that whistleblowers do get attacked, and I want the audience to understand, I'm giving you an example, I'm highlighting an example to you. It's not the only example, but you guys need to understand that there's examples that we can come across and look at and put it back into our computer for later, in case some of these future whistleblowers come out, and be in the forefront. You have to learn about the past, so that way we can correct the future. And if we sit there and just don't trust these new whistleblowers that are coming out, then we're never going to get to keeping these scientists safe. It's just going to be an impossible task. Go ahead, Alpha.
Yeah. So with that, go ahead, Carmen.
Go ahead. I was gonna go to the next hand, but you go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know we're down to the 15-minute mark, and we got quite a few hands up, folks. So just be conscious of that. After you make your statement, we're going to drop you down. If there's somebody that's going to be doing an after space, make sure you get that, drop in the purple pill so people can find it. But we are looking at 15 minutes. So take that into consideration as you go through the hands, and I'll give it back to you, Carmen.
Rapid fire. Northern Star, rapid fire, rapid fire.
Hey everybody, good to see you. Sounds like Alpha got a new mic. Game Tech. In regards to the multiple theories out there regarding the aliens, and the advanced tech, so the science and technology side of this, all combined. What are your thoughts further and deeper into the more spiritual realm, good versus evil, that maybe these aliens are all part of the God's creation, the angels and the demons, etc. Have you looked deeper into that yourself and had any thoughts on that you can kind of condense?
The book of Daniel and the book of Revelation is pretty daggone accurate. And that's not coming from me. I'm just saying that in general, there are people who study that in DC recently, and it's just phenomenal that a lot of what we're seeing today is coming into fruition. So I know that that's that's a generic answer, but it's the truest answer, because like if you look at Revelation in particular, it's like explaining something that you can't really explain. John was trying to explain something that he was seeing that he's never saw before. That's the type of stuff that we're going to experience as well in the near future, is that we're going to start seeing things that we've never seen before, and that we can't explain. And there's going to be the evil side of things that are trying to confuse us and try to get us away from the truth. We just got to be steadfast in the truth, because of course, I'll be funny for a second, but the truth shall set you free.
Oh, that was a perfect answer. I enjoyed that very much. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Northern Star. Eva, rapid fire.
Hi, Corman. Hi, Two Guns. Hi there, Game Tech. I have a couple quick questions. Okay, so I hang out, all hours of the night because out in my backyard because of the deer that come visit me. And I also notice what goes on in the night sky. I've seen quite a few things happen. Okay, so one of my questions is, I have binoculars and I'll look up into the sky and there'll be like kind of way up there like dots, and then all of a sudden they'll just take off moving, like just gliding across the sky. And then I'll look on and then I'll see another one. Now I've talked to people
Most of those are satellites, hon.
that are just sitting there and just moving.
I'll explain it to you before you explain it to the audience. That way, then you'll understand. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
So what you're seeing in the sky when you look up and you see like an object, I'm going to explain what she's seeing, and tell me if I'm correct.
Okay.
What you're seeing is kind of like a black little object with a little bit of glimmer to it, kind of like the sun is kind of shining on top of it, and it slowly moves, and it feels like it's like on Earth, it would feel like it would be like between 5 and 10 miles per hour, and it goes in one direction, and it just keeps going and going and going. Those are satellites. Okay, the movement with UFOs are very sporadic and kind of wavy. If I don't know how to put it into words, but once you look at them, if you have good 20/20 vision, you'll be able to see like a wave or some sort of electrical thing around it.
Plasma.
I don't know if it's
I'm
plasma. I
teasing.
don't
I
know
don't
the
know either. I
scientific.
don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, a lot of what people see and they mistake it for UFOs is actually satellites, and that's unfortunately I don't like giving that answer, but it is a true answer.
Okay. Well, these are like orbs, kind of like orbs, and they're way up in the sky. And they're not black. They're kind,
They look like stars. They look
yeah,
exactly like stars.
yeah.
They're cloudy white, and those type of UFOs I've actually seen them in my life too.
Okay.
They're clustered though. Usually when you see one, you'll see another.
Yeah,
So
you see about 3 or 4 of them. They don't seem
yes,
like at the same time though. It's like, within a couple minutes of each other. And
exactly. And they move slow, and
yeah, they
it's
kind
not
of
in
like
a formation. It's
ooze.
not in a formation. It is just like a cluster of balloons or something. You'll see one, and then maybe about 15 seconds later, you'll see another one float by, but they're
Yeah.
all in a cluster. Yep. I
So
know
those
exactly what you're talking about.
okay. Okay. And then some of them, what are the ones that are like they just it's like they're different colors and they're flickering. They could be like red, white, yellow, just
I
flickering different
I
colors.
don't know. I don't know if that's just our light bending. I don't know. I don't know too much about that particular one, but I do know that we do have some iridescent ones. The way that I can describe it is you blowing a bubble and you looking inside the bubble, you can see your car or your house after blowing that bubble, but you know that the bubble presence is there. I put this is a real photo of a UFO down at the Purple Pill. Check it
Hmm.
out.
Okay.
And that is a real UFO. That's not, you know, AI or created. This was taken a long time ago. So.
Yeah, back in '73, I was at
I,
a slumber
I, I,
party.
I'd, I'd love to hear back in '73, Eva, but we got a lot of hands to get through, ma'am.
UFO. Okay, two guns.
Felix.
My last is the one guy got me with is he saying that people that walk among us that have Rh negative blood are aliens? Are they not human, or what is that about? And that's my last question, and I land my unicorn.
I have no clue about that, but I do know that RH blood is heavily talked about in the Epstein files. So
That.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you, Eva. That it is. That it is. Let's go to Zach and then Paul and then Belinda. We're gonna rapid fire.
Yes. I got a question. Do we got a ship other side of the moon, black, cloaked, and it's patrolled by say the aliens, and all the governments are working together on that ship?
I don't know nothing about that, sir. I really don't. I have not heard anything like that. I've heard about the bases on the moon and all that stuff, but that's just from like social media. But from the back channel, I've not touched on that, nor has anyone ever thrown that information out to me.
Yeah,
So
I heard this off of somebody who enlightened me about all this before. Okay, worked in like a ops or whatever it was before. I just like army ops somehow before. As just wanted to know if it was true, real, or something like that, or can you look it up sometime?
can I look what up?
We got a ship other side of the moon, cloaked in this black, you got high
You
tech.
know, I might I'll talk to some people that have better education on that subject, and I'll talk to the right people. this week just to get an answer, because I'm kind of curious about that too. Now that you talk about it, but as of right now, I literally with the UFO story that I've taken on, I haven't delved in that area, nor have I asked my sources about that. I usually don't ask questions to any of those people. I just listen. Mainly, I just listen, and then I'll repeat what I've heard. That's the gist of what I've done with this type of story. I haven't. If there's a question, it's usually about a definition of something or an area of what they're talking about. I would want to know the area, whether it would be like neuroscience, whether it be like um, uh, educate, like just a different area. But I haven't asked pertinent questions about anything or any type of operations. They wouldn't be able to answer those type of questions even if I did ask. That's why I really limit my interaction with just listening and then just parroting. And there's others that get this information too, and they do a spectacular job on other media of getting this type of stuff out. So.
Okay. That's what I want to know. I said, just like this, keep your ear down low and try to listen out for me. Just get back to me on it all.
Yep, Zach, he sure will. He'll get that as soon as he can. I got to move on to the next hand because I want them to have a chance to be able to ask the questions.
I
Go ahead,
appreciate you,
Paul.
Carmen.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, this is real quick. For Alpha and Game Tech, and I guess for the space, because everybody's speaking on the spiritual implications of this, and I hope like I get this out properly because language is it's a barrier. This is why Jesus spoke in parables, because there are things beyond our understanding that can never truly be conveyed through language. But the Bible and the Christian Bible, from what's written, does the best job to bridge the gap of understanding between what is unexplainable. If you want to call it God, if you want to call it the eternal one source that seeded his consciousness in creation, or its consciousness in creation, into the ether that we understand as our universe. That's what we're understanding now, and what we're coming to realize. There have been seedings on our planet for what you want to call the original human tribes. That's where the Rh negative blood comes from. There is also good and evil. If you want to say God is within each and every one of us, well, not all of us are good, not all of us are evil, but there are consciousness. There are intelligent beings that are fighting over the good and evil of human consciousness. So these races, whatever they are not, some of them are good, some of them are evil, some of them are here for bad things. You just have to remember you are one with that eternal being. And I'm speaking to everybody in the space now, just like Jesus said, God is within each and every one of us. Just like the wave expresses itself, it's still a part of the ocean. Whenever we die, we are returning back to eternal one source. If you want to call that the Christian God, go ahead and call it that, if that's what you resonate with. But I just wanted to get that out there that, hey, this isn't anything new. This has been around since the beginning of time. From before there was 3D, there was 5D and 7D. Jesus came down through all of those to come and spread this message that you are one with all of it. And we've separated ourselves so much and put a wall up of fear and ego to separate and control. And that's all I believe. Like Alpha said earlier, government is, I don't believe in any government. Government is just here to accentuate that ego and control all of us through the fears. And I'll land there. And I hope I was able to express that in a way that some people felt something. So thanks, game.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Paul. Let's go to Belinda and then Experience.
Hi. I just want to know
something that Doomer said about the RH negative. Like, what in God's name does he mean about RH negative blood? I know he's still in here. I would like him to answer.
Okay, he can put that in the purple pill if he's in there. I'll tag him and have him express what the RH blood stuff is, because that's not my cup of tea, to be honest.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. Experience?
Peace. Thanks for having me up, guys. I just want to throw this perspective out there and maybe have the host and Game Tech kind of chime in with their opinions. But I know the idea that if there's any kind of disclosure that happens, that there's going to be this huge ontological shock. And from a religious standpoint, like I'm a God-fearing man, but I'm not necessarily religious or subscribe to any particular denomination. But if this were to happen, I believe, this is just my opinion, that the world's religion will actually strengthen their resolve on what it is happening. Because if you look at any religion, there's non-human intelligence littered throughout every culture. So it may be a refining or refocus of what we have been taught and maybe we haven't been taught. Right. But I feel like aside from the potential shock that might happen there, the science world is the one that's going to get rocked more than anything. If you talk to some scientists, a lot of them, it's this hard shell to break through that they kind of already know everything. And I believe that this particular question of not just the technology, but the idea of non-human intelligence being here, being part of our world in a sense, is tied directly to our evolution. Not just science and technology, but also spiritually, as who we are, what we are as human beings. So do you feel like between religion and science, who gets affected more?
Who gets it? What do you mean by gets affected more?
Essentially, who gets, what's the more shocking revelation to happen in either one of those worlds?
I think people who proclaim Christianity are going to be more shocked, because they're going to learn that their belief system, they've been believing, they've been led to the wrong road. Basically, it's kind of like when Christ was talking to the Pharisees, and the Pharisees had this idea that they were, these religious, they perfected religion and that they're above everyone else. I think that that's kind of the example that humans today are going to feel. They're going to understand that they weren't worshiping God, that they were worshiping idols, that they were worshiping everything else but God, and that they were led to a direction by not God, but by, Satan and his tools, which is the governments. And do not misunderstand. I'm not an Antifa. I'm not anti-government. I'm just anti-Satan. And so you have to understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. I just believe that government, the systems of government, has been restrictive on our relationship with Jesus Christ. And it has always been that way. And even our laws, even them, look at the 1950s with the United States government taking the Bible out of classrooms. Look at the 1960s when they've introduced a lot of these heavy drugs into our society. And then you look at the 1970s where all of these sinister government operations like MK Ultra happened. And then we can go through decade after decade, and I can provide you many examples of government basically using us as a lab rat. Look at Pruitt-Igoe. And then not only that, but our government uses people like these terrorists, these quote unquote ISIS terrorists, that they basically design operations and then they get some dummy to perform those operations, and then they call themselves hero. It's little, it's a lot of these things that the government does that is not good for humanity. And so I just have I have a viewpoint where we are set up to fail, and it's up to us to realize that there's only one solution to that failure, and that, to me, it's Jesus Christ.
Cool. Appreciate the response.
I think we should be coming to the last one, or did we wrap them up with that, Carmen? Carmen had one job. The entire thing, she had one job. Actually, it looks like she might have a mic issue, but it does. I don't see any other hands. So, Game Tech, go ahead and give your final thoughts to the space. Anything that you want to push where people can go to your page and find it, and then I'll give my closing thoughts. And there's a video that was referenced a lot tonight. So on the way out, we'll be playing that. And then again, if anybody has a space, drop that in that purple pill, so everybody can go and find it. So with that, Game Tech, your final thoughts, brother.
I just want people to understand there's nothing really to fear if you're just doing the right thing in life. If you're taking and looking out for people, and helping them obtain their goals in life. Because more and more people that obtain goals in life, the better off their mental state is, the better off they are. And then once they met their goals, they can start helping others meet their goals. It needs to be a domino effect. We need to start being more aware of how we treat people, not only on X, but even in the comments section. We've got to understand that we've got to control our mouth. We've got to control our brains in the most godly way possible, especially during the time that we're living in. This is a very, very dangerous time. And I don't care how you feel about President Trump. Trust me, I have a lot of grievances, okay? But we all have to come together and pray for our leader, for God to direct him in the godly way that he needs to move us forward. We need to pray for President Trump every single day, because that man, regardless of how you feel about him, he's got a lot of burden on his hands right now. It's insane of what he's what he's dealing with. And so, Democrat, Republican, or whatever it is, I don't care. I'm not a political guy. That's one thing about me. I hate politics. Even though it's in my name, that's just because of you guys, honestly. You guys love it, so I'm forced to talk about it. But you got to understand that President Trump is dealing with so much right now, and the only way that we, as a nation, Democrat and Republican, that can get moved through this is by prayer. Prayer of a righteous man is powerful and effective. James 4 something. So, you guys, thank you, Alpha, so much for highlighting my work on this story. Um, it was scary at the beginning because I didn't know how people would react. I was trying to build, some. I was trying to build a little journalistic effort, and a lot of what I've been doing. I've been covering stories that most people won't even touch. That most people just are too even scared to talk about. With our military operations, with MK Ultra, with our torture programs, we need to get rid of that stuff. And I hope that President Trump would be listening tonight, and for him to look into those sinister programs and end it for us, because there's a lot of military guys out there that's been through a lot of shit, and we need the doctors and the scientists to correct the mental state of a lot of these soldiers, and citizens. So and my last thing, go buy a homeless person a cup of coffee, do something good for your neighbor, um, and just make it your mission this week to do one great thing for somebody. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Alpha, for your time, and for your work on this. I genuinely appreciate it.
The honor's been mine, game. It's the knowledge comes through. There are several hundred people in the space all night, and that was definitely a testament to yourself and Josh, and just the consistent good questions. It was great question after great question after great question. With a lot of statements and opinions that were put in there. And I'll tell you what, I learned a lot tonight from a lot of different people, and that's something that was definitely enjoyed. Carmen, you got anything to say? And then I'll give my closing monologue, and then I'll play that video clip for everybody. She threw up that 100.
She doesn't have a mic.
Yeah, she just hold on real quick. She sent me a DM and she says, "This is my closing monologue. I just want to say what a true honor it was to co-host for Alpha. I think he is the coolest person on X Spaces, and I really think hanging out with him today made me a smarter person." Thank you for that, Carmen. Truly, truly appreciate that. To add to what Game Tech said right now, and praying for our leader, praying for each other, something to look forward to. A positive sign from our president, May 17th, 2026. President Trump's called for a national prayer event that's going to be held on the National Mall. And in that national prayer, he's going to be dedicating the United States back to being one nation under God. And I think that's definitely a move in the right direction. So my closing thoughts, and then like I said, stick around for this, and I'll play about a 2-minute video on a video that was mentioned quite a few times tonight from Laura Trump and UFOs. I just want you guys to recognize tonight's space was not a black pill space. It was not a doomer space. If anything, I think it was a doorway. For 80 years, the subject that we talked about tonight, it's lived in the shadows. It's been held under ridicule, stigma. The nothing to see here, and that era is coming to an end. That's one thing that definitely took away from a lot of the conversation tonight. And I guess you could say one of the reasons that I'm really optimistic about this, I mean, it's simple. When we got leadership, like President Trump, and he decides that the public deserves the truth, and at whatever level that is, the entire trajectory of history, can change very fast like that. And I think while we watch for President Trump's speech on the horizon, I think we look for the tone, the signals, the disclosures, because this, if you guys have taken away anything, this is very real, what's happening right now. And it's not just about, what exists up there in the sky or what's out there in space. It's a lot of it's about what's going to be possible here on the ground, here on Earth. And even if a fraction of the recovered science stuff or things that we've been told tonight is legitimate, whether it was the materials, the propulsion, energy, just the fact that we're staring at that 500-year leap, that's going to be compressed into this, 20-year window. I mean, just think about that. Everything changes. The way we power cities, the way we travel, the way we communicate, the way we heal, the way we defend, like everything changes. The economies will reshape. Borders, I would imagine, probably be redrawn. Like whole industries are going to vanish and entirely new ones are going to be born. And I mean, there's a statement they always say, what a time to be alive. And I truly think that as fun as this conversation was, and maybe at sometimes a little scary or maybe concerning, it did provide a lot of hope, for what's coming. It's, the truth doesn't have to break society. We can use that to upgrade our society. And I think if we stay disciplined, if we don't panic, if we don't do cults, if we don't have grifters, if the citizens, like you guys have been doing, just demand transparency in a responsible way, oversight in a responsible way, and continue to do independent verification, I think we're solid. So I'll leave you with this: the future isn't something that's going to happen to us. It's something that we're going to step into. And I truly enjoyed the conversation tonight. So make sure you guys tune in next Wednesday, 11 p.m. Eastern, for the Alpha Warrior Show here on X Spaces. And then make sure you go and follow the work that I do and many of the others do over there in the channels like Rumble. So you guys, good night, Semper Fi, and I'll catch you on the next one. And here is the video. Enjoy.
Next question. What do you or the president know about UFOs? Can you share? I hear that the president has something in the queue to share with us. about all of this. Now, truth be told, I'm trying to remember how long ago it was. It may have been right after he left office, after the first term. I remember Eric being like, all right, what can you tell us? And he was a little hesitant to give us any real info, which makes me think like he's got a lot of info out there and he's waiting for the right time to drop it. And maybe this is going to be the time, because I keep seeing all these stories about how he's got some like UFO speech that he's got queued up, and we all should just kind of sit back and wait. Now, here's the thing I'll say. What do I know about UFOs? What I know is that our universe is so enormous. It actually, if I start thinking about it, it makes me a little crazy. You think about just our solar system, okay? And then you think about how many solar systems like ours are in our galaxy. And then you think about how many galaxies are in this universe. The whole thing is just, it's kind of like mind-boggling. So the idea that the only form of intelligent life out there is us, that we're like twerking on TikTok and stuff, that's it. I don't know. I find it hard to believe. I fully believe that there's other life out there throughout the universe. And if you look at some of the like prophets, these are people hundreds of years ago, or I don't even know how long ago. A lot of them say that sometime soon we're supposed to have some sort of an interaction with another form of life from outside of our planet. So I don't know. I fully believe there's more out there. I think it would be a heck of a waste of space if it's just us here and we're doing like dumb challenges and again, like just twerking on TikTok. There's got to be more out there. Okay.
All right, folks. If I can get a couple 5x5s or some loud and clears in the chat, just because it's been a few hours since the show's been running, I want to make sure you guys can hear me. So this was X Spaces, the Twitter virtual town halls, and I really truly hope you all enjoyed that. There are tons of these, and I see the 5x5s come in. Thank you, Farmer Red, over there on YouTube. A couple 5x5s coming in. Mary Jones, 9191, thank you. 2F17 Northern Rumble, 5x5, thanks. I really do rely on you guys to make sure everything's up and good to go. So I'm going to be doing these once a week, and then I'll be cleaning up the audio, and then probably adding some overlays and maybe mixing in some video clips to bring this information to you guys. But to try to do these live on Rumble, it is, and there's a lot to it. Like I said, to make it quality, because the X Spaces is really informal technology that X utilizes. So you do get trolls that come in, you get, audio issues. I clipped out the first 5 minutes of this because it was just trying to maneuver through some of these audio things. So I'd rather, clean it up, and so I can bring you guys something solid. And then, like I said, while I was doing the show today, I was like, you know what, I can do an overlay here on certain topics, or, some of the things that we're talking about in that show. And I think that'd be more beneficial. Or I might leave it like this and just do a screen recording of the people that are there talking. I don't know. I'll be figuring out as we go over the next few weeks. I'll definitely take feedback from you guys. I know a lot of you have asked me for a radio style show, something that you want to listen to while you're doing chores. But a lot of you said, when like with the Just Alpha, which I'm going to be doing them. Don't worry, they're not going anywhere. But with that, people are like, I'm doing my chores, but then I feel like I'm missing stuff, because of, what's on the screen, and I don't get to see it because I'm doing this, or I'm taking care of the kids, or I'm driving. So this will probably just remain a audio format only. I'll pop on the front end, I'll pop on the back end, I'll hang out with you guys in the chat, just to provide something for you guys that made that request. And I think it's kind of cool. I'm going to start transitioning, or no, that's incorrect term. I'm going to start adding the content that I already have over to the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and a few others. We haven't done that in the couple of years that we've been going. One of the reasons being I just haven't taken the time to figure out the complexity of it. If it is at all, maybe it's easy. But we're definitely going to be growing. You guys just know time is something that is not on my side with everything that I got going on. However, we are in a war, and I do have every intention to perfect this and to continue to make this more professional for you guys. I really do try my best. So let's pay some bills real quick by doing an ad here on Rumble. And here we go. All right, parents, real talk for a second. America is about to hit a huge milestone. We're coming up on America's 250th birthday, 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-government the world has ever seen. This is the perfect moment to help your kids understand why this country matters, not just fireworks and hot dogs, but the story behind it all. There's a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America 250th Birthday, and it's honestly a great way to introduce kids to how America began, who the founding fathers were, what they risked, and why the ideas they fought for still matter today. This guide sends kids back to a moment when brave men signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing full well they were risking their lives for freedom. It breaks all down in a way kids can actually understand and enjoy without watering it down or turning it into boring schoolwork. If you care about raising your kids to know who, were, and where this country came from and why it's worth preserving, this is something you'll want to grab. And the best part, it's completely free with this special offer. You just need to pay $2 for S&P shipping and handling, maybe. Just head to freeusabirthday.com. That's freeusabirthday.com, and the Kids Guide to America's 250th birthday for your kids today. America's story matters. Make sure the next generation knows it. I'll be doing that following the show. That actually seems pretty freaking awesome. And I would ask that you guys all do the same. I mean, $2, that's nothing, folks. There's a lot of people that are supporting Rumble, supporting us on these podcasts, these Substacks, this parallel economy. This is the way we defeat the establishment. The other thing that I'll say is 2 Substack articles. They were both almost done, but I got some new information, and rather than breaking them into 2 parts, I just wanted them to be completely one solid part each. So I'm hoping to have those done early this week, the latest by Wednesday. One of them for sure, but the goal is to get both of them done. One of them's involved in Greenland, and the other one, well, I'll just leave that as a surprise. So do me a solid, you guys. Hit the thumb, smash the thumb, hit the heart, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about this. Bring the X Spaces to YouTube and Rumble and Facebook and some of the other platforms. And like I said, any ideas that you guys have, I'm open to it. This is something that's going to be new, and we can adjust it as we go. So with that, you guys, thank you. God bless, Semper Fi, and I will catch you all on the way out.